Your local writers group is crap. Stop burning off your free time in the presence of introverted do-nothings. Instead, join the Gosslings Writers Group live stream and podcast. The Gosslings, a digital gang for writers. Writers who actually write stuff, who use typewriters. Writers who name their pit bulls Hemingway. Writers who write all the people who've ever offended them into their stories, then murder the shit out of them. The Gosslings. We don't always act pretentious, but when we do, we wear fucking ascots. Welcome to the Gosslings.
Write like a man. Use a typewriter.
Take up the broken sword of your father
and strike down the darkness.
Cheers.
Cheers. Take a sip of this.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Nick.
We are the Gosslings, and we're really excited today because we have a very cool interview guest that sort of was Nick's idea, actually.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I'll key it over to Nick.
Yeah,
and
sure.
let Nick, tell us all about him.
Absolutely. We're going to introduce John Anderson.
Yeah.
I've been following him on Instagram for a while. He's an amazing poet.
Yeah.
And he's authored a book, a Western,
Oh, yeah.
called The Price of Salvation. We're going to talk about that book.
Yeah, cool.
Fantastic guy. We're going to go over just some different topics. Mainly, I want to talk about his book and, of course, the topic of what does masculine Christianity look like.
Yeah,
An interesting topic.
That is a topic that should be on the forefront of every Christian man's mind. And that is, I would consider that probably the thing I dwell on the most.
Yeah.
More than anything else.
Yeah, when
you know?
push comes to shove in today's climate.
Yeah.
what's that
And
look
it
like?
doesn't get easier as society goes
No,
on.
it doesn't.
Anyways, yeah.
We can go on and on about that.
Yeah. But we should probably let John do that.
We'll do that. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, John Anderson. Hey, John.
Hey, John.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Doing
good.
great,
How
man.
you doing, bud?
Pretty good. That was an awesome intro and a very not even just you guys, just the whole intro thing. It was great.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
I had to redo it. My whole system crashed. I
Yeah.
had to wipe the hard drive. I had to do everything like within 2 days to get everything ready for this. And so we had to re-record everything. And
Yeah.
I'm glad it worked out well. Thank you.
I'm impressed by
if you wouldn't have said anything, I would have never known. It was awesome.
Well,
that's a credit to Nick's industriousness. Like, Nick is kind of the engineer and producer, and he's sort of the workhorse of this entire operation at this point, because like I came up with the idea to do this, and we were just like, if you go back and look at the early episodes, it's us filming on like what I call potato cam of my laptop's little camera, the little inboard laptop flip up camera, and it and like extremely humble beginnings, and I was good with that, and then Nick has developed it into what it is,
This beast.
this thing that looks far cooler and is far more professional than anything I ever had in mind. So
I'm just the driver.
including the intro.
I'm just the driver. He's the guy in the back seat with all the ideas.
I'm like the Nick Nolte on the movie set, who just shows up and is like, don't listen, don't like, don't say anything you're not supposed to say, don't pick any fights with anybody. And they're like, I know he's kind of tough, but
we need the personality. Jonathan gives the show like gusto and guts,
which is why you're very important, John.
Yeah.
why we need you. So obviously I'm fascinated with the subject of Christian masculinity, and it's so funny because my brain has a hard time even processing the phrase Christian masculinity without it being subverted by the phrase we always hear, which is toxic masculinity. So, and that's such a leftist sort of buzzword today in culture. I would like to get your comparison of those in a minute, but before we do, John, do you just want to give like a brief intro as to maybe where you're from, why what compels you to write your book, and what compels you to do what you do?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I'll go in that exact order. I am from Las Cruces, New Mexico is where I currently live, but I was actually born in Silver City, New Mexico, and raised for a vast majority of my early childhood in Lordsburg, New Mexico. And so if you've never heard of either three of those cities, consider yourself lucky.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I passed
Not
through.
Yeah.
I passed through. Forgive me if I mispronounce it because I always seem to. I was on my way to Colorado about 6 years ago, and I was driving out there, and I took the southern route from Nashville to Glenwood Springs, and I passed through for about 12 hours. I passed through New Mexico, and it was right through Tucumcari. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Tucumcari, yeah.
So I had never been to Mexico before, or New Mexico, and I'd actually never been that far out west, at least on the ground. And it was beautiful. I have been wanting to go back out there ever since then. I mean, maybe like if you grow up in it, it's not special to you, like how you grow up here. Maybe it's not special, and then people come out here and they're like, it's so green, you know. But New Mexico is just, it's very stark. I mean, there are mesas, and there was a thunderstorm, you know, while I was there, and it was just hammering because, like,
you don't see thunderstorms because all the trees. You don't see thunderstorms until they're directly above you when you're here. But you can,
but when it can get you,
exactly. But out where you're from, I mean, there's so much visibility you can see for so far. Yeah. Have you lived in New Mexico all your life?
Yes, actually, and New Mexico has been my home literally since the day I was born. The only thing that's changed is the cities. And
really?
To be completely honest with you, I 100% agree. See, the difference between there's New Mexico, and then I'll give you an example of Lordsburg. New Mexico is like beautiful, vast, expanding deserts and mountains with beautiful sunsets. Yeah. And, you know, it's like you said, stark vastness. Lordsburg is like, you know, those little olives that you get on top of a sandwich, little green ones.
Yeah,
that's like what Lordsburg is, and the sandwich is New Mexico, but Lordsburg is like a little olive that you pick up and chunk, and you're like, all right, maybe I'll eat that later. I don't know, but that's effectively what Lordsburg actually is as a whole for the whole entirety of New Mexico, or in comparison to. Uh-oh. Well, I think I lost you guys. I'm live here.
There we go.
Oh, hey, there we go.
He's back.
Sorry, all right, John. Not sure.
And we traded places on the screen too. That's cool.
Okay. You know what? I like this better.
Yeah, I took over your guys' show. I'm interviewing you guys now.
You know what? You're welcome to.
Tell you what. When you put it like that, forget it. No, we're no.
Oh man, see, you know. So Lordsburg, the olive on the sandwich that you throw away. I like this. Hilarious. It's food. You're speaking my language, obviously. So how long? So you lived there for a little while, and then you moved to a couple of other places.
Yeah. Well, I moved to Las Cruces. I lived in Lordsburg for about 5 years, maybe a little bit under, and then I've lived in Las Cruces ever since. And gotcha. Las Cruces is a great little town. It's not necessarily like tiny Lordsburg, blink and you'll miss it, but it's not like huge Albuquerque. And if you've watched like Breaking Bad, you know Albuquerque. It's it's like that. It's kind of like one of those big central cities in New Mexico. But Las Cruces is like a strange middle ground between those two. Still relatively small, but not like a very small. So but that's where I've been most of my life.
Very cool.
Really.
That's awesome.
Well, let me ask you a question. I want to talk about your book, The Price of Salvation. What inspired you? I wish I had a picture of it here. I'm sorry I didn't prepare for that. Do you have a copy of it there with you that you could hold up to the screen?
I actually do. I have one right here. I've been reading.
Wow, that is beautiful.
Yeah.
So I've seen it in black and white. I haven't seen the color version. That's amazing.
Thank you. So fun fact about the cover, actually. I had sent them. Let me see if I can find it on my phone. So my publishing company that I work with, they're amazing. I mean, they have been awesome through the entire experience, but I had a very specific vision for what I wanted my book to be, like even from the beginning, not just in the words, but I also had this like exact cover in mind. And I was like, I'm kind of one of those guys who, if I see something that a society has agreed upon, I do my best to make sure that I agree with it. And if I don't, I change it. I like that. One of those examples was people were like, "Oh, don't judge a book by its cover," and I despise that saying because I'm like, that's the silliest thing because you do like it doesn't matter if people tell you not to, you're going to. Like, what your eyes see is what your immediate first impression is. So I had told, even before I signed up with Dorrance, I was like, okay, I need you guys to promise me that you will be able to do exactly what I want. Like, you have a graphic designer, not any copy and paste like nonsense.
Yep.
Like, I need a graphic designer who's going to make the exact thing I have in my head. And they were like, yes, we got you. And so I remember before I sent it to the graphic designer, I had drawn this sketch in my book. I'm not an artist. Okay. This was the sketch that I had sent them for what I wanted.
No way.
Yeah, this is it.
I see it. Mountains in the background.
Awesome.
You got the the rim, the ledge that the horse is standing on, trees down there. Yep.
You know, that's perfect, John. I mean,
So
that's
they
everything that somebody needs, you know? That's everything a graphic designer needs to fill in the details. You know,
I know. I told them, like, all right, listen, I need it at sunset, and I need like red sand and some really beautiful mountains. Go, and they were like, okay, well, here I go, and you know, they're absolutely amazing. But yeah, so the cover being as beautiful as it is, that's really what's helped me sell a lot of the book, is because people see it and they're like, whoa, like, wow, that's such a beautiful cover. And I'm like, thank you. You know,
very cool. So tell us about, so it's called The Price of Salvation. You can get it on Amazon. You can also get it at, is it Dorrance Books or Dorrance Publishing? What's the website?
So Dorrance Publishing is the company, but the website's called dorrancebookstore.com. Maybe an easier way to go about it would be to go to my actual website, which is andersonbookworks.org.
Even better.
Because it has like all the links to every place you can get it on the internet that I've found myself.
Cool.
So I think they're like at Target and other places, but yeah, you can get it there.
Neat.
We'll be sure to post the links afterwards in the descriptions and everything, so people can go directly to either one of those. Whichever. Yeah.
So tell us about the story of the book. What's it about?
Yeah.
Sure. So do you want my like general quick summary that I give to like everybody, or would you like me to go a little bit more in depth on it? Because I got two versions.
Well, it's more of a two-part question. What is it about generally, but what's it flowing from?
Yeah.
Like,
where does it come
from? Why did you feel like you really needed to write this book? What story are you really trying to tell?
Perfect. Okay. Well then, this is a great question. And you believe it or not, my book actually does kind of tie into the main question of the interview today, which was Christian masculinity that you guys have been talking about. It does actually play into that a bit. So hopefully this will kind of give us some ammunition for later. But so I started writing it in 2019, I think. Yeah, 2019, because that's when that thing that we can't say on this website, because if we did, it would get taken down.
Right.
But that's that thing that happened that everybody's aware of.
That big event. Yep.
Yes, the big event. I'd sat down, and I've been a writer all my life, but so I had this passion for writing, and I've always kind of had this passion for writing since I was like 16. And I started going through a really hard time. And, being locked in a lot did not help.
How old are you now, John?
24. I turned 24 last 2 weeks ago, I think.
Man, published book at 24, man.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Awesome.
Gosh.
And
dang,
a good one
awesome.
at 24. There's a difference.
Yeah.
So anyways.
Sorry to interrupt.
Sorry. So you were suffering from lockdown.
Yeah. So it had come around, and I was really just thinking to myself, like, I was really struggling with a few things, and I was initially making movies, but I couldn't do that anymore. I was writing scripts for short films, couldn't do those anymore. I couldn't do like anything, so I felt like I was drowning. And I had this idea for like 2 years, and I had initially penned it as a screenplay, but I knew that the story wasn't finished even as a screenplay. So I got to a pretty dark location, and that's when this book was like, let's write this, let's do this. And I say let's as a specific use of the term, because it was very much a spiritual journey as much as just like me thinking I want to write this book. It was very much like God leading me and saying, hey, we need to tell this story. And that leads me directly into, so that's kind of like my personal side of it. Just I love to write, and I got to a place where I really needed some help, and the way that I did that was to start using my gift to produce something that could help others.
Cool.
If I've ever had a goal in my life, it's a very simple one. It's just to help people. That's literally what I've said like all of my life. People are like, what do you want to do when you grow up? I'm like, I don't know. I just want to help people. And that's what I say still. They're like, what do you want to do when you grow up? I'm like, I don't know. Just help people. I don't know specifics.
It kind of gives a
So-
blank canvas for God to do whatever he wants.
It's
at
true.
that
Well,
point,
and
you know?
writing
I
and
think he
writing
probably
is
likes
such a
hear
good way to
that.
do that too.
It
Writing's
is.
a good way to do
Yeah.
that because you're helping you give. I mean, it's not just entertaining people, which everyone, of course, everyone wants to be entertained.
Sure.
But it's a great way of giving people new ideas and perspectives where
Yeah.
they might be when they read something like this, they may have been hesitant to think or consider, God's influence in their life or having anything to do with them. But when they read through a story like this, it kind of sneaks. I say sneaks through, not in a coercive way, but like it makes them wonder. I wonder what having God in my life would be like. I wonder if that could change things. So many people talking about.
Yeah.
It's just a different writing.
It's
Is
like a thief in the night.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
I mean, boy. I mean, a well-written sentence, chapter, book, whatever, can really give someone some perspective. So, anyway, I digress.
Absolutely. No, actually, you're progressing, believe it or not, because that tail fins right into what the book's about. And so now I can tell you a bit about the price of salvation, the actual plot, and like what the story is about, because it very much stems from that. The biggest when I started writing the book, and what I usually do with all of my written works is I immediately think, what story is God trying to tell with this? And I have a very unique perspective on these kinds of things because I was raised predominantly Christian my whole life, but it hasn't been butterflies and rainbows, so to speak.
Nope.
And I don't generally believe that a true Christian relationship ever is with God. I don't
Right.
believe that a Christian walk is supposed to be like, we're just having fun and everything's
Mhm.
great and Jesus loves you and high fives all around. Like there's times for that, but generally speaking, in my own personal experience, it has been a very rough walk from the day
Mhm.
that I was birthed on the planet, even before then. And I could go on for hours about those stories, but I won't because we're talking about the price of salvation.
Next
So,
time.
Yeah.
next time. There you go.
Yeah.
So all that kind of fed into this story. And so the basic point of the price of salvation was to ask the question, could somebody who has done the most atrocious things still be saved? Can someone still be found by salvation even after murder and thievery and all of these things? And that was the basic concept of the idea when it started about 3 years ago. Now it was 2 years ago before I got it published, but 3 years ago now. And the original vision I had for it was like just this cowboy dressed in all black on a black horse, and he's in the middle of the desert, and this bounty hunter walks up and is like, I'm gonna kill you. And then there's a preacher next to the bounty hunter, and he's like, wait, let me at least try to save him first. And that was like the basic starting seed of what the price of salvation became. And the original title was actually God's Outlaw. Very, very basic,
Cool.
like 15-minute screenplay. Yeah. And it definitely over the course of those 2 years of development turned into way more, but at its core, that is what the story is. And so the main character, Thomas St. Hart, he is an American outlaw. He was born and raised in Arizona. I'm sorry, I think he's in New Mexico as like a little personal Easter egg to my state, but he is like prominently in Arizona. And he's raised into this life of being an outlaw and only knowing those things for the entirety of his journey. And then there comes a point in 1902, which, if you know American history, modernization was taking a huge, heavy upheaval in the West. And the times of the West were basically dying.
Yep.
And they were no more, effectively. It was like,
the sun was
if you were-
setting.
yeah, like, it was the end of the West. And so for a lot of these outlaws, it created a kind of like a crisis, because you're like, well, I don't know what else to do. Like, most of them were still wanted heavily by the US government and all those things. So you're pigeonholed into this like area where you can't move. Like, that's it. And you have to make a choice. And so that's the main form of conflict for not only Thomas, but the rest of the characters in the story, is each character is affected by this modernization, this I could actually say progressive movement that starts to come into America. And the progressiveness forces Thomas to start asking some questions like, what is family? What's faith? What's freedom? Like, what are all these things? And can I still attain that after doing what I've done? And it's a scary time for him, because really it's gone from a state of like, well, times are ending, to no, this is the end. Like, death is around the corner. I could be gunned down by the U.S. cavalry at any moment, because they're here now. Like, they were never here before, but here they are. Right down the road. And
that's something I was going to ask you. It was like, it's set in 1902, and the outlaw West is kind of fading, like you're saying, and there's less opportunities for outlaws to take advantage of. And
Right.
it isn't
Yeah.
Thomas St. Hart, the main character, isn't he part of a gang? Is he part of an outlaw gang?
Yes, he's part of the Brothers of Baudeclair, and they're more than just a gang in a sense. They are like a family. Most of them have known each other since they were, children. In Thomas's case specifically, Lucius Baudeclair, who's like his father figure, who picked him up and rescued him when he was a child, he's known him his whole life. And so Lucius and Thomas are very much very, very close because like it's like his father figure. But even most of the rest of the gang in the book, it kind of alludes to when they all showed up. But by the time we meet them, they're a family. They're one, they're a unit. But is that really the case? Is what you start asking, because you figure out, well, I mean, we've been together since times have been easy, but now that times are hard, what does it come down to? And the big pivotal key change, and I don't want to give you guys too much spoilers because the spoilers.
I want to get this book. I want to read it. So.
The moments that are shocking are very shocking for a reason. So I'm like, if I spoil it here, it'll ruin the effect.
No spoilers.
Understood.
But okay, good. No spoilers. But very much the pivotal moment that comes across is you have this decision that needs to be made, like less opportunities, right? Well, an opportunity presents itself, and the unfortunate thing is that the opportunity is very dark. It's not just like, oh, I'm an outlaw. It's like evil. Like it goes a step further than just, well, we are the original ideology of freedom. Like in a version of the West, the outlaws were kind of like looked at as superheroes, because you're like, wow,
folk heroes.
Yeah,
and they still are in a lot of ways. I mean, for the libertarian ideology, it's sort of like the anti-hero libertarian.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and that's a key element as well. The freedom aspect, it plays into that. It plays into the, well, can you really hate these guys? Because they are the true embodiment of freedom, right?
Yeah.
Question mark. And you start to ponder those things like, well, I mean, they don't have any rules. They govern themselves. They kind of just do whatever. And you're like, that sounds pretty great on paper, but is it? And then even that question makes you go, but is it? Like pulls you back and forth, and you're like, what's the true essence of freedom, of family, like all these things. And so I kind of get a little bit off, but that big dividing point, that critical evil that shows up, Thomas is conflicted by it. He doesn't agree. He's like, I don't know if I want to do that. We've never done something like that before. This isn't us. But times are desperate. You're choosing between the lesser of two evils in a sense. And it's like, well, would you rather us all just get gunned down in the street, or take this opportunity to hightail it out of here? And so it's a big conflict for him with his family that he's grown up with. And then
that's cool.
To avoid spoilers, after that it gets heavy spoiler territory, but
sure.
That deals with like the family and freedom aspect. And the faith aspect is very interesting, because this is the main point of the book. And I've been telling people the heart and soul of The Price of Salvation is chapter 5. So if there was ever chapters you needed to pay attention to, it's chapter 1, because there's a lot of details for the rest of the story hidden in there. So if you're a really like in-depth reader, you want to pay attention to chapter 1. And chapter 2 also has some key elements, but the next big chapter that is literally like the heart and soul of the book is chapter 5. And it is where you meet some characters that start to bring in faith and the God aspect of it. And that's really the main point of the book in a sense, is to if you're willing to take a chance on God, right? And think, okay, times are desperate. Who really is my family? What really is freedom? What is faith? And when you start to ponder those things, it starts to kind of pigeon-tail into one location, and you're like, I see it. I could see that. And the beauty of this book, though, is that if you're not a person who's very religious, and you don't maybe, I'll take it like this. I believe there's 3 types of people in the world. There's a believer, right? Sold out to God entirely. A make believer, you're kind of on the fence. You're like, I believe there's a God, but I don't know how much. And then there's the non-believer, who's just entirely, no thanks, not for me. Those are the 3 types of people. Well, those 3 people exist in my book, and they are the 3 main characters of the book. And so you can choose to read the book in 3 different ways, and whichever way you do, you will get a great story regardless. That's
that's a
my
cool
favorite.
witnessing tool. I know exactly
Yeah.
what that's like. That was the objective behind my Heavenly Realms series, and I think that's kind of in play in some of Nick's books as well, if not the Travelers League series. Then it's a great Christian strategy. John, were you always a fan of Westerns, or was this a motif that just kind of sprang out of nowhere for you?
No, I've always been a fan. Well, I've kind of lived a Western, honestly.
Well, you're definitely in the environment. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And all of my ancestors before me were all ranchers, cowboys.
Really?
Like lived out in Lordsburg is actually a pretty well-known Western city or town.
Really?
It's referenced in a few Western movies with like Clint Eastwood and John Wayne and things like that because it was that. And so it's a bit of my heritage, but also just as a kid, I loved Western films, and I've watched them like ever since. I love a good Western.
What's your favorite? What are your top three favorite Westerns?
Top 3. Okay, well, to be honest, I think Django Unchained is probably like number 2 or number 1.
I still haven't seen that one.
Yeah.
You have it. Okay, well, it's a Quentin Tarantino film, so you know what you're getting into. But
Right.
I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I love his movies though. And then number 2, definitely like an obvious choice, or either number 2 or number 1. I'm between this and Django for number 2 and number 1. But The Good and the Bad and the Ugly, obviously.
Oh yeah.
And then and really, I'm very bad about like labeling things I like because my brain like just doesn't work like that. It's like
Gotcha.
I like this section of stuff. And,
and I love all of it.
Yeah, like, I love all of them. Like, I'm very picky and choosy. Like even with music, I'm like I don't like a whole genre. I'm just like I like this song from that genre, and this one from here, and that one from there. And I'm like, okay, but these are all great. And so literally any spaghetti western or John Wayne film.
Have you ever seen Seraphim Falls?
I don't think so. It sounds like I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, not a well-known movie. I think it's a western from maybe 2005-ish. Pierce Brosnan and Liam Neeson. I literally had to stop and think, wait, who's Qui-Gon Jinn? And so anyways, it's so cool. Your book kind of, and it's very much like almost it is a metaphysical, it's a chase movie, but there's like a redemptive aspect to it. And there was this weird time where like the mid to late 2000s were very Western. You know, there's a lot of cool Westerns coming out.
My favorite's Open Range.
Open Range is awesome.
Robert Duvall, Kevin Costner.
But and you know what? Like The Price of Salvation seems so archetypal because it seems, not having read the book, it seems like a spiritual hero's journey, a redemptive story. It's a Western, so it's kind of like Open Range meets Seraphim Falls meets Red Dead Redemption, but all with a Christian, aim point at the end of it. It sounds awesome.
I can't wait to read it.
Yeah, the irony is it probably will be a movie at some point, John. So
let's hope so.
That's the goal, right? That's the goal. Just get it out to as many folks. But that's absolutely true. At the end of the day, my friend actually gave me a term for it because he was going to put it on his Instagram, and he's like, "What do you want to call it?" And I'm like, "We'll just call it a book." And he's like, "It's more than a book." And I was like, "Okay." I'm like, "Okay, well, what would you call it?" And he's like, "Well, I don't want to call it a novel because he's like, that sounds pretentious, so we won't call it a novel." And I was like,
"You can be pretentious here."
Yeah,
we wear ascots sometimes. You can be pretentious. I have some hanging up back there just for kicks.
He does, yeah.
Oh, I think I see. Yeah, just in case you get to that point of the live.
Absolutely.
Well, so we had decided inevitably. He was like, "Let's call it an American epic," and I was like, "That's perfect. I love that."
Yeah.
And it very much is like a classic story that you love, though. Like my biggest thing is like, yeah, I'm a Christian and I'm a writer and all these things, but I'm also like a super I love stories. And so when I make something, I want to make sure that the story I'm telling at its basis is just a good story. And we have so little of that these days because whether it's bogged down by like Hollywood agenda stuff, you can't watch a single movie without like being worried about if you're getting indoctrinated with something or
just in your face all the time. It's like, just tell me a good story.
Yeah,
right. And that's
and I write middle grade fiction, right? This is one of my books. Oh, that one.
There it goes.
I write middle grade fantasy. And it's the same type of thing with middle grade books for kids, 8 to 12.
Mhm.
You know, I just wanted to tell a fun fantasy story, but you go out there and everything has
An
you know,
agenda.
everything has an agenda. Everything has like a main theme or a message. They were trying to teach kids this one thing.
And it's usually Luciferian of some sort.
Usually,
You
I'm like,
know?
well, why don't you just have a bunch of nice themes in the background, but just tell a good story.
Yeah.
Don't tell a story that makes a kid want to go out and do bad things. Just
Right.
tell
Yeah.
a fun story that if a kid found themselves in that adventure, it would be the event their whole life ends up revolving around.
Yeah. And maybe they would
Right.
want to do the cool things that the characters do in
Yeah.
that story.
Yeah.
See, and that's interesting you mentioned that, because I had actually found myself. So I had this thought, and I'm writing my book, and I kept thinking about like all these people that were going to read it. And I was like, what if someone reads this and they get offended by it? Or like, what if somebody, and then I just stopped myself and I was like, look, first of all, who cares? Second of all,
Amen.
Yeah.
My
I
man.
was like, second of all, I had thought about that statement, like, well, I don't want to be indoctrinated with something when I go watch a movie. And I was like, well, isn't that what you're doing though? Just like on the other side of it. So then I met myself in the middle, and I was like, all right, here's my rule. I'm going to tell a good story. I know what themes are in it. People who are clever enough, or really just can look at it on its face, will be like, okay, that's probably what this is about. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be like in your face preaching to you. It is
Yeah.
a subtle thing in the background. And that's why I tell people,
Yeah.
I'm like, you can go down that road if you want to, or you
Yeah.
can just read the story as a Western and just get a good
Yeah.
Western. Like, you don't have to. And so that was my middle ground. I was like, I may be having a bit of an agenda here, but I'm doing it subtly, and I think that makes me okay.
Well, that's kind of the
Mhm.
master stroke, is when you can do that in a way that it's not so overt, but it still operates in the machinery of the background, and it's still authentic to your ideals and your beliefs, but it's not just ham-fisted.
Yeah, well, that's what Pressfield did with a Man at Arms.
Yeah, Man at Arms
Very
was
much so.
a great example
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah, well, I
Also,
mean,
kind of a Western, though, set in a
Yeah, absolutely.
So-
I mean, every movie is going to have like a message it's trying to get at you. Like, okay, take
Yeah.
for example the Lorax, right? Very
Yeah.
much don't destroy the world, right?
Yeah.
Like that's like the message. But there was once a time in film where like you could say something, like you could
Mhm.
tell a story and give a moral, because that's really the whole point of stories, is to,
Yes.
especially fiction, is to
Yeah.
take you out of your bubble and put you like in a little, take your bubble and then poke holes in it and be like, hey, check out this other thing that you didn't know.
Mhm.
And you're like,
Yeah.
okay, well, maybe I learned something. I found something I didn't know before. And that was like generally the whole point of fiction. It's just been so bogged down by like, well, we're not going to poke holes. We're just going to like blow up your entire world and then get mad at you if you don't agree with us.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's like, whoa. Like, I at least give me the choice to like it or not. Like, come on. Or at least make the movie good, or book.
Yeah.
Like, could we at least get that first? But
Yeah.
yeah.
I would like to jump over to the topic
Oh, yeah, sure.
of masculine Christianity, and this is kind of it's a crossover question, so it's still related to the book. How would you compare Thomas St. Hart in your story as he goes through this? And I haven't read it, so no spoilers, right? I'm just assuming things from the book. But how would you describe or compare redeemed Thomas
Mhm.
with the modern average evangelical Christian man?
That's a tough one. Well, I mean, not so much. So one of the beauties of the story is that there's a key sentence. The first sentence that opens up the entire book is once upon a time in a world much like our own. And that's not really a spoiler. That just opens the book. And what that does is it sets up this premise that you're kind of in a fantasy once upon a time, but you're in reality in a world much like our own. And so Thomas, he's this weird character that kind of like fills in between the two, and he pulls out the average Christian. And so for the males of Christianity who may be reading and watching, reading the book, they're supposed to be able to identify with him in the sense of like, well, who is he? And so one thing you got to remember is like back in this time, it's very different than the world we live in the sense that you had to really like be a man's man. Like there was no room for, I think I'll get up at like maybe 10 today after I've been on Instagram for an hour. I don't know. We'll see. And you're like, oh, where are we gonna eat for dinner, guys? Applebee's, like
Chick-fil-A.
yeah, Chick-fil-A. And it wasn't like that. Like it was like.
Yeah.
You're lucky if you wake up alive, and if you do, you need to get up and go find food, watch your back, be ready, like learn how to survive this and that. So it's hard to kind of compare with characters like that, but the mentality of Thomas is very much comparable. So you'll get to know Thomas. He's a very much a fighter and a he's a deep thinker. So that's where we can identify with him. But he is a he's a killer. He's been raised a killer. That's his life. He's learned how to survive that way. And so redeemed Thomas, in the end, if I could compare him to any way, it's that he's, without spoilers, he still has his faults, right? There's still things that we not necessarily can always escape. There's certain things that we take with us all the way to the end, and we can never truly escape them, in the sense that some things in the realities that we live, or the lives that we have, we have to deal with them to the end. Like we all have, like they say, like you all have your cross to bear. And so Thomas's cross, in a sense, is very much just trying to fight. Like he's a fighter, and he's constantly fighting for something greater, at least when we find him in the book. From the moment that we see him, you can kind of tell that he's starting to question things, and he's like, is this it? Like, really? He portrays himself as very much as a simpleton. And I think that's how a lot of men are perceived, as very, simple, and, well, here we are, I'm a man, and I sit and I do this thing. And but in our minds, there's so much going on, and that's Thomas, and he's kind of dealing with this existentiality of life. So in his redemptive arc, in his redeemed form, he still has his problems, but he knows what he's fighting for, and he believes in it. And he's finally found something that he can fight for, and that he believes in. And again, I can't say what specifically, because that does dive into spoilers. A lot of the excitement of the journey is figuring out what Thomas inevitably aligns with, and figuring out what he decides is the greatest battle you can ever fight. So you take that to today. This is the thing about the price of salvation, is there's a lot of physical symbolism in it, or there's a lot of like
cool.
It's like Old Testament. That's the best way I've compared it in my brain. It's like, you read the Old Testament, it's a lot of symbolism. You read the New Testament, it's like more of the action of like the spiritual action, right? Like typing old types the new, vice versa. And so the price of salvation is very much based in an Old Testament world, and that is intentional as an Easter egg for you guys.
Oh, sweet.
So everything that happens is very much like symbolism. Like it's this gritty, violent, brutal story. But if you look at what's happening, you're like, oh, I see some symbolism here. I see what's going on. And so I'm not sure where I was headed with that. I kind of spaced it there for a second. But so redeemed that's Thomas, if we were to type it spiritually to us, that's what it was. Yeah. You type Thomas spiritually to the modern day Christian, and it's a fight, and you have to end up asking yourself, what's worth fighting for? What really gives you freedom in a world that seems to be closing in? And this is very key, because 2019 was a very key year for a lot of stuff that we are seeing to even today. And so even into 2020, all that stuff that's coming up, and you guys know what I'm talking about. I'll avoid naming specific themes so YouTube doesn't
zap us.
Appreciate you.
Zucked.
Appreciate you, brother.
Exactly. Yeah. But you guys know what I'm talking about. And that is the important aspect of those first two sentences of the book. This is a fictional tale, but there is real world elements that still apply. And I've come to find out that I myself, as a Christian in today's world, align more with outlaws than I do with the sheriff. I find out that the scope is beginning to change, and the world is starting to close in, and things are changing, and the progressive movement continues to go forward. And so that's where Thomas is. That's where Thomas finds himself. And so it's a very, very, very important story to our current day. But at the very end of it, you have to figure out who's my family? Like, really, like, who can I, without a shadow of a doubt, who can I depend on? What is faith? What is that really? How can I attain that? How can I attain a personal relationship with God? And if not with God, what do you have to believe in? And of course, then freedom. Well, what's freedom? And we look at the state of the world today, and a lot of those freedoms are starting to to disappear a little bit day by
Yes,
day.
they are. Yeah.
And you look at that, and you look at the outlaws who thought the same way, and you're like, wow, it's a very interesting parallel that even
Yeah.
myself was a bit of a thing for me to discover, because a lot of it was just me like kind of letting God do his thing. And I was like, okay, here we go, writing under the inspiration. But so that's how I would compare it to modern day Christians, to be a Christian in general, but I mean, Christian masculinity. What do you think is worth fighting for? And are you man enough to fight that fight? Because at the end of the day, it's for us, it's more spiritual and mental, but still huge fights. I mean, it's a mess. Like if you really if you were to take the average spiritual fight that a person goes through in an average day and show it like Price of Salvation style, like Old Testament, it would be like, David versus Goliath, like chopping off his head, and look at all the Christians fighting like all the legions of the world, and it's like David versus the armies of the who are coming to invade his country. And it's very much the same. So
interesting.
I
love that concept. I love the concept of someone using Old Testament skills and tools to fight New Testament causes.
Yeah. With the metaphor, the visual metaphor of everything. It's awesome.
Yeah,
Powerful
it's cool.
stuff, John.
Can't wait to read it, man.
Yeah,
very good.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I got a couple more questions. So, and one of them, you're answering my questions before I can even ask them. That's so great. Fighting for family, fighting for faith, fighting for freedom. What does that look like for the American masculine Christian today, like modern? How would you define it? Everyone might define it differently, but I'd like to know your kind of take on that.
Sure. So like, well, I mean, it kind of comes down to what you're willing to stand for. And of course, like there's many scriptures that will actually give you like, what is it to be, to be a modern male example? Like, how should you treat other individuals? How should you treat, your wife, or like things like that? And really for us, that's kind of what it comes down to. I mean, life in and of itself is very simple. If you really break it down to its core elements, it's like birth, growth, and then like marriage, work, and then death.
That sounds about right.
That's the right order of things.
Usually that's how it goes. And so like the very, very, very simple, I'm kind of being funny here, very simple breakdown, but in between all that, you start to figure out, as a man, what is it what example are you setting? What are you doing for your kids? How do you treat your wife? What do you do to spread the gospel through the world? And those things, it's very, very similar, and anybody can do that. But I mean, obviously, if you read the Bible, there is certain differences between what men do and what women do as well. And men are very much commissioned to go into out into preach to the masses, and the fivefold ministry and things like that. That's very much the job of what we're supposed to do. And at the end of the day, you can look to Paul a lot, and he was like, this is the main important thing here, and heavy paraphrasing here, but Paul was like, the important thing is that you do what you are commissioned to do, regardless of the circumstances. Like even there's some scriptures that would really throw me for a loop, because like Paul would be like, if you don't need a wife, then don't have one, because they're just a distraction. You're like, whoa.
Hey, now, easy, Paul.
Like he's like, they're just a distraction. You're like, whoa, hang on a minute, what just happened? Let me breathe that again.
Yeah, but what a distraction.
And but like
exactly.
to figure out where he was.
Distract me. It's okay.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that's what Paul was getting at.
Yeah. I found that was really interesting too when he said that, because I was like, that's very interesting that he says that if you don't need one, which very much implies that if you have one, it's because you needed a wife. And I was like, wow, the importance of a wife then, because like as a man, you can't do what you need to do for God without having someone there to back you up.
Right.
And so, what's interesting is that, and I can kind of bring this back to Thomas as well. masculinity has been coined as like a negative term these days,
No kidding.
which is very
Yeah.
odd, but it makes
Yeah.
sense because the world's very much shifting towards a female-led
It is. It's the
infrastructure.
age of Aquarius, baby.
Mhm.
It's been that
Yeah,
way for
and and it's
100
like
years.
it's interesting to see how there's a subtle breakdown of all those elements. It started out as
Yes.
toxic masculinity, which you mentioned earlier, and and it's like, oh, that's toxic to be like manly, and it's like, well, what defines that? And you're like, well, holding a door for a lady's like,
I've been
bad.
yelled at on a date for it.
yeah. And I'm like taken aback. I'm like, what? Like that's
Yeah.
just respect. Like that's not. Anyway,
Right.
I'm getting a little derailed here,
It's
but
protection.
right. And those are the basic roles of like
Yeah.
of a man and a woman. And like there is those roles there. Like, and I know that that's a controversial statement to say today, but they do matter. They're relevant, and I know I'm amongst friends here, so I can
Yeah,
say something
absolutely.
like that and then get canceled on
Absolutely.
Twitter sometime years down the road. But it's
Dude, I already got zapped on Instagram. You're fine. There's
Okay.
nothing you can say that I haven't already stepped in. You're
Yeah.
all right. So,
well, there you go. But
Yeah.
yeah, so the modern Christian male. One interesting thing about it is that you're the front, you're the face, you are the representation of not only yourself but your wife, your family, the people that you go out and reach to, and that God reaches out to through you too. You're responsible for those people, and it comes down to a heavy sense of responsibility and being able to bear the burden. They say that men were given broad shoulders to carry the weight of what they have to have. Right? I'm sure you've heard that saying.
Yeah.
And so.
And God knows just how big your shoulders are.
Right, exactly. And so, but interestingly enough, there I do see where people will come in and be like, oh, well, there's this toxic thing, and well, anything can be turned evil if you let it be.
Yeah.
It's not like it's unique to this thing. And so, there's a certain sensitivity, I believe, that masculinity has as well, and that sensitivity is love. And it's very interesting because, you look at Jesus. Jesus loved like the more than anybody that there was. But if you examine his character, it wasn't like how modern Hollywood loves to portray him, where he's just like smiling and he's real. I hope this isn't sacrilegious, but they present him like real dainty and real fluffy. And he's got this long, like conditioned hair. And the actors are like real
very, very feminine and non-threatening is
exactly
how they like to present it.
Pantene Pro V Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's how Hollywood portrays it. But if you read the scriptures and when you read
'cause
the
they have to.
conversations you would have with people, he was like, bam, like hammers over the heads. I mean, he called a Gentile woman like a dog, like he basically. And like if you were to do that today, like you'd get like thrown to the wolves. Like it would be like that. And they did not like him because he and by they I mean like the Jewish folks of the times, they didn't like it. The Pharisees hated him. All of them hated him because he wasn't dainty and fluffy and
because it was a threat.
Everybody loves me, and that's again more
The irony,
He was a bad dude with a whip when he cleared out the temple. Can you imagine what the disciples, they kind of just I bet they just froze like, what's happening right now as they're watching him thrash and turn
poor
over
Peter is
tables.
over there like, dude, I wish you would have told me. I got like 18 whips that I've been making in my spare time.
I got a sword.
Yeah, I got a sword. I would have loved to,
Yeah,
but also,
like, why
I mean,
did you
sell your
bring me
cloak and buy a
this
sword,
sounds like a great party.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
And I wish I could have been there. I wish I could have been. I wish I could just hear the tone and ferocity in Jesus's voice when he would cast out an evil spirit, cast a demon out of someone.
Yeah.
When you talk about the Son of God casting out, a devil.
Yeah.
What did that sound like?
It probably sounded like Dad when he was mad at us.
I mean, talk about thunder. Yeah.
Like that's the full force of the full godhood of God, just powering through that. Like that's like
of the
that's
one
intense.
True God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. So all that to say that like you want to know what Christian masculinity is, we'll look to Jesus, because that was the capstone of what the example is that we should be, very much for all Christians. But I mean, the subject here is Christian masculinity. And so, it's not a dainty, it's not a fluffy, it's not everything's butterflies and rainbows. It is a gritty, it is a bloody, it is a nasty, hard fight. And you have to get ready to get down into the mud and go get those people out, the fishers of men. Fishing is not easy. I don't know, especially the old fishing where you're casting those like 50-pound nets out and
Nets.
then pulling them in, you know, like that's hard. Like that takes work.
Yeah.
And
Fishermen were the dock workers of the, of the first century. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And so, you know, that I think, you know, and that just comes down to a lot of, you know, doctrine, right? Like, are you really preaching it how the Bible tells it? Because a lot of people these days, they love to look at the love thy neighbor and, you know, be good to one another and peace.
Mm-hmm. Turn the other cheek.
Yeah, turn the other cheek. And it's like that is good. Yes, that's there, but you have to bring the hard stuff too. You have to be able to put your foot down on things that, you know, especially today, you are not going to make people happy with saying. There was
that's okay because happiness is not the most important thing.
Exactly.
That's right. And I almost wrote my typewriter one up on this, but you know, he said turn the other cheek. You know, and he's talking about insults.
Yeah.
You know, but if we take that into the physical realm, maybe you turn the other cheek. But for a Christian man, that's turning your cheek. That's not forcing the people who are under your protection to turn theirs.
Right. Yeah.
You know, there is an element of responsibility.
Yeah.
That comes with.
And our primary goal as men is to be protected.
That's primary base level. Got to do that.
Yeah.
Or don't call yourself a man. Personally, I'm
there we go. See,
but anyway, I can.
And even for that, there's a certain element to spiritually, you know, like it all comes down to like really figuring out, again, what's worth fighting for. So for like an example I could give is if, you know, someone comes up to me and they're like, you have a giant forehead or something. Well, I could get mad and I could be like, dude, I'm going to knock you out. But obviously, you know, turn the other cheek. Great. However, if someone were to come up to me and say, I think that your God is a failure, and I think that it's not real, and that he's stupid, you know, it's moments like those where you got to kind of be like, you need to be careful. Like you can talk about me all you want. You go ahead.
Ding, ding.
You want to talk about my forehead? Bring it. I can take it. But you do not talk about my God. And mostly it's because you take that love that Jesus had, and you're like, you need to be careful. Like you don't be saying things like that because that's how you get yourself in trouble. I'm fine, but now you've made the situation something where I have to help you, because if you don't watch yourself in this moment, you could end up bringing a very harsh consequence upon you.
You get a cosmic spanking. You know?
Right? Yeah. And you know, and that's a whole other conversation, really, about like how to present the word carefully. But I think that and it kind of goes back to the price of salvation. It's like this is the middle of the, you know, straight narrow way to try and get people and present people an idea and a belief and a story that's just good generally all the way around. And you know, whatever you make of it, you make of it.
So, John, you've got your first novel written. It's flushed out of the system. It's out on the page. It's printed. It's published. Is it curtains for John Anderson's career?
No, not at all. Great, by the way. Wonderful segue there. No, not at all. I actually have another book coming out.
Yeah, sweet.
Yes, it is. It's called Curtains, actually. So very, very nicely punned there. No release date yet. Learned my lesson with the price of salvation. I told people like, oh, it's going to be out in like 2 months. And then like a year later it came out. So I learned my lesson.
Right.
So it'll be out when it's out. I would wager 2022. I'm sure. Like I don't imagine it coming out any later than that year. So I can safely say that. But yes, and it is a poetry book. It is the original 140 poems that I wrote and that I posted on Instagram, but they are very much a personal it's a personal story and a personal journey. And so
they're great poems, man.
They're what inspired Nick, I think, to reach out to you and follow you. And I think he read a couple of yours and
they were really good.
Fell in love with it. So man, I mean, it's got to be powerful.
Can't wait. Are you thinking probably 2022 go long on the projecting of the publishing date?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I started the publishing process about 4 months ago, and I've noticed that it takes about a year for a book to get like out to the public. So I would wager that it would be absolutely in 2022, unless like something went wrong somewhere down the way, which I heavily doubt and I don't accept. So I think it'll be fine. But it's it'll be out in 2022. And you know, since you guys were kind enough to actually somewhat of a way premiere this announcement.
Yeah.
I'll give you guys a little of an Easter egg about the book.
Cool.
So Nick, I don't know how long you've been around, but I'm very cryptic, and Jonathan, you'll be able to, if you ever go and read them on the page, you'll understand what I mean. I'm very cryptic in the way that I speak on the pieces, especially with my more controversial ones.
Yeah.
Very, very like not necessarily open-ended, but just cryptic. You know, like you kind of have to really dig into it and think about it.
Pay
and
attention.
so, yeah, and the crypticness of Curtains is this. It's, so I wrote Curtains over the course of like a year, and the poems themselves are all in a way interconnected. And the reason why is because I was writing them when I had really, you know, still not feeling great. I finished the Price of Salvation, but I was like, why do I still feel terrible? And so the way that I was able to finally start addressing some of those deep-seated issues with me was I started writing poems. And Curtains is all 140, or these over the span of a year, this sort of internal character arc that I had from my own perspective. So just, you can know that, and some of them are a little more random, like they're like just a thought that I had, but they were a thought had at this point of my life. And so you can actually, if you pay attention to the poems as you read through the book, you'll actually be able to see the arc of how I went from you know, I think literally the first sentence of like the first sentence is literally I see the darkness of the world that lives. So it opens up like
right where it should.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And then you get to the end, and I don't know many of the last poems quotes. It's been a while since I've read them, but I can tell you this: the last one very much ends in a note of like, you know, God is the light, and that is where I will
Very
go.
cool.
And so it is like this arc that you can actually kind of watch as you read through the pieces.
That's awesome. What a cool journey.
Man, that's cool. Well, John, I got one last question for you.
Yeah, we know you got to go. You've run over time, and we appreciate you.
Oh, did I? Around. Oh, I did. Okay.
Yeah,
that's okay. Yeah. Hey, but before you go,
I don't want you to be late for your church service.
I'm going to put you on the spot. When Curtains comes out, and it's published, will you come back on and tell everyone about it?
Get you back.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would love to come back. Anytime you guys invite me, I will be here.
Absolutely. Dude, we have so much more to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
Like, schedule like an hour and a half to 2 hours for us, because we got so much we can ask.
There are a couple questions I scratched out, and there are even more that I have since we started this.
How about you know, it'd be cool to get you back after we read the book, because I bet you we'll have a lot of questions about the Price of Salvation.
Yeah,
and, that would be awesome. And then we could actually have like a spoiler conversation about it.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be cool.
Dude, this would be so much fun. John, thank you. This has been awesome, man. You were so cool, dude. And like, now I gotta go out to New Mexico again. You know,
I know it. I know, it's so pretty.
There you go. Well, come down to Las Cruces and come say hi.
Oh my gosh, dude!
If I ever come to New Mexico, I certainly will.
I just got a new Tacoma. I totally want to. Yeah, I need a cross country trip.
You do. I'll go with you. That sounds great.
Yeah,
I'll jump in the back.
So we'll be there in like a week, John. Just, you know.
Oh, good. Okay, great.
Awesome. John Anderson, man, thank you for doing this guest interview, man. I know it was kind of short notice for you, but it was awesome.
Yeah.
And we really appreciate it. And have a great evening. I know you got to run.
Yeah.
We're going to get your book, and then we'll schedule a follow-up interview, and we'll dive deeper into it.
Yeah, we can't wait to have you back,
yeah,
John.
man.
This has been awesome, man.
Absolutely,
thank you for joining us, dude.
And thank you guys so much for having me. You know, like these are honestly some of my favorite things to do, if not my most favorite, is actually just like get to reach out and talk to folks. And you guys are both great, amazing hosts. Nick and Jonathan, you got the voices. You know, like if I was sitting like in my room listening to a podcast, I would be like, yeah, those are the guys.
That's very sweet of you. We're on Spotify.
Speaking of that, nice segue. We're on Spotify, and then we put this on Rumble. And just so you know, before you drop off, this full live stream will be on YouTube for a few days. And what we do is I dice it up into little segments. Based on these different questions, and then I pull the main one down and I post the shorter segments. That way it'll reach more people. People are more inclined to watch shorter segments than a long, 2-hour thing, whatever. Right. So it'll all be on YouTube, but the full thing will be on Rumble and of course Spotify. We turn every episode into a podcast episode too. So and those are all be in the links.
Yeah.
and
Oh,
description.
yes. Yeah,
And
I
I'm
will
pretty
do
sure
that,
it's
and I
just.
can share that with my followers as well. They
I think
love
it's just the Goslings for all of that, right?
Yeah, it's just the
Goslings with
Goslings.
2 S's. So
Yep.
yeah, it's super simple.
Yeah,
Nick's
not
done a
like
killer
Ryan Gosling. He has 1 S.
job. Yeah,
He's a dork.
yeah. There are 2 of us, so we
I'm
need
older-
2 S's. One
I'm
for
older
each of
than
us.
There
him.
you go. Yeah.
It was our name first. He's the one that sucks.
Yeah, there
Like,
you
come
go.
on,
Old
man.
school
Learn some
episode.
English every once in a while. Let's go. That is amazing.
That's right.
For real.
Well, John, man, thank you so much for joining us. I know you got a church service that you got to get to, so I'm sorry for running late.
No,
man,
that's
we
fine.
really
You know,
appreciate it, dude.
I have a general rule. I'm like, if I feel like I need to be somewhere, and then
Yeah.
I'm just there. And whenever I need to
Yeah.
be somewhere else, I'll be somewhere else. It's all just part of a leading thing. But
The Lord works
absolutely,
in
next
mysterious
time,
ways.
you know, we'll clear out 2 hours because we'll
Yeah.
more than likely definitely need it for the book.
We
That's
will.
awesome.
Yeah,
There's
we
a lot to
absolutely will.
dissect in there.
Cool.
Awesome.
John Anderson, The Price of Salvation,
Mm-hmm.
available on Amazon. And give us the name of actually John Anderson is your at actually John Anderson is your Instagram handle. And then real quick before you leave, give us your website and the publisher's website as well. And anything else that you want to give us.
Sure, yeah. So my website is andersonbookworks.org. Bookworks is not a real word, so it's like BOOKWORKS.
Yeah.
And of course .org. And the publisher's website is dorranceBookstore.com. And
How do you spell that?
DORRANCE. And if you ever need to find my book, you literally can just go to Google and type in The Price of Salvation, John Anderson, and all of the links will pop up there. But my website also has them available too. Oh, and if you buy from Dorrance, it definitely helps me out. I actually get 80% of royalties from there. So
Oh, okay.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So go to Dorrance.
That's more than Amazon.
Give the website one more time.
AndersonBookworks.org.
Okay.
And then Dorrance is DorranceBookstore.com.
DorranceBookstore.com, and that's where you get the highest royalties. Is that right?
Yes, yeah. Dorrance
That's
is the one
definitely
that's
where I'm going to be
highest.
buying mine. Then that's awesome. Cool.
There we go. I'm going to put it up. Let me throw it up there real quick. Let's see. Make sure I may have spelled it wrong.
That
DorranceBookstore.com.
looks right.
Yep,
Is
yeah,
that right?
that's the one. Yeah, that's
Okay.
the one. Yeah, and
Very
you can
good.
literally just search The Price of Salvation, and it'll pop up. There's not another book like it. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
So it's very much like the first top result.
Dude, it's a Christian Western. Who
Yeah.
doesn't want that? I mean, dude, that's huge.
There is the
market will love that.
Yeah.
And the cover is
such
beautiful.
a void for good Westerns, right? Current Westerns
Christian,
right now. Yeah.
especially.
Christian Westerns.
Yeah.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. And you know what? Since you guys mentioned it, I'll give you another Easter egg because this is something that is very much created by me, and it is what I will be building the rest of the stories that I ever tell on. But it is a Christian Western. But fun fact, it's its own genre. I looked it up, and it's like it's not really a thing that's done. People do Westerns and they do Christian stories, but so I coined the term of is what I call them, and it's it is a Western designed to sharpen the spiritual and mental sword for the believers in the not. And so if you ever want to tell anybody what it is, you can say, oh, it's a Whetstone Western, and it'll start. Hopefully, it'll spread in that way.
I think we have a fan real quick here, or a friend of ours, Natasha, who is interested in why Dorrance. She wanted to ask about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, like for the publishing company?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a pretty easy answer. I went through a few different publishers, but Dorrance is the number one, the oldest in America. They're 100 years old as of last year.
Really?
Yeah, they're actually the oldest bookstore like in America, or the publishing company in America. So I figured they knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
And it was very much a thing of you get what you pay for. It was pretty pricey to go with them, but I mean, you look at the end result, and I'm like, it was worth like every penny. And they're amazing to work with. I mean, the agents that you get that like walk you through the process are all fantastic. I mean, when you guys see the page design on the inside, it's just as beautiful as the outside. I mean, they're absolutely amazing.
So this isn't just like an upstart in the past couple of years.
Yeah.
They've been
literally
doing it for a long time. Dude,
Yeah.
I got to check them out.
Yeah.
Our friend Natasha asked, Dorrance, are they good to publish through? What was the experience like working with them? Talk a little bit about that before, if you don't mind us cutting another minute or two off your.
No, that's fine. It's totally fine. Like I said, I'm like, where I need to be, I'll be, and I feel like I should be here. So no, I don't mind answering at all. Yeah, so they are very good to publish through. I mean, I can pop this up here. So graphic design wise, I mean, well, you can see this, you know, like it's absolutely phenomenal. Then there's page layout, page design. Let me see if I can look at
That's
this.
where
Is
I struggle.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a spoiler here, but I can't get it.
Oh
There.
yeah, you got
Oh,
the
nice. I like that drop cap.
yeah, the drop
Yeah,
cap
see?
on each chapter. That is such a cool touch. For anybody listening on the podcast later on, the cover to The Price of Salvation is absolutely
Yeah,
beautiful.
That's
And
cool.
speaking to Doran's, to their credit, the sketch that John showed us is like it truly was transformed into something that was like straight out of your brain. The graphic designer was absolutely genius in what they made,
Yeah.
and you
Oh,
guys,
absolutely. Her name is
you knocked it out of the park. It's a beautiful cover.
yeah, Kimberly Wilson. She was the graphic designer. She's
Kimberly
amazing.
Wilson.
Yeah.
Nice.
The only thing I would say about Dorrance, and this isn't a negative thing, it's just like advice for you because I learned this the hard way. Be very, very clear with what you want. Like if you have a specific vision in your mind or a specific like color that you want for like even just a letter, like whatever. The biggest thing you could do to help yourself would be just like literally as specific as possible. Like be very, very clear. And if you are very clear, then you're going to be fine. There is occasionally like I know in the cover design process they messed up a few stuff about like the design. So be also very vigilant. That'd be my second bit of advice. Just because you know people make mistakes and you don't want to like just approve something and be like, okay, I want it out now. Like yes, I approve it, because then you might get something you don't want. So be very, very like vigilant. Go over the cover top to bottom. Make sure that you read the back and it's exactly what you want it to read as. You know, go through the corrections they made on your document and make sure that you're okay with those corrections, which is very easy, by the way. They do it in like a word editor app thing, so you can actually like see where they made the differences off to the side. Very easy, but that would be my only 2 bits of advice. You know, just be.
So they're a little expensive, but they're worth it.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, you know, and the thing is that if you make something that if you legitimately believe in your project and you make something that you believe is worth that price, then it's worth it in the end. And, you know, they have payment plans too. So I've been on a payment plan for like a year and, you know, it's pretty inexpensive. Like once you do it like that, but, if you have something that you genuinely believe is like good enough that it's worth the amount, don't mess around. Just like do it right the first time. Because I mean, even for me, this is one of the biggest things that people are going to associate with me, other than the poetry I've done on Instagram. This is like the maiden voyage, or no, not maiden voyage. That's the last one you do, right?
No, that's the
That's
first one. Yeah.
What is the first one? Okay.
Also known as a
Swan
shakedown
song.
cruise.
The Swan Song is the last one.
Yeah, Swan
There you
Song's the
go.
last one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Maiden
there
Voyage
you
is
go.
also known as a shakedown cruise, where you just figure out what works and what doesn't. You know.
Absolutely, yeah. Hey, you guys can let me know that too when you read it. You'll have to tell me your professional critique as well. I've been waiting to get one from somebody, and like
We don't have one. Yeah.
We're not professionals. We're pretentious writers. We're not professional publishers.
there you go. You're
Dude,
like,
we
I'll
are.
just
I'm
tell you
so
what I
excited
think.
about the book, man. That is so cool.
I
Like,
know.
I'm really proud of you, John. By
Yeah,
the
dude,
way,
awesome.
like, dude, to be 24 and to take a chance on something like that. I mean, there's a real. You talk about the crisis of faith that the main character has at one point. I mean, truly sticking your foot out there and putting money down, and going into debt, effectively having to pay off something, in order to get your book out, your
It's a
project
leap of
out.
faith, man.
It's a huge leap of faith,
Yeah.
dude. I'm really proud of you for
Dude,
doing
that's
that.
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. And to add a little bit to that testimony, because it actually is pretty relevant. So at the time when I decided to go through with the contract, they were like, okay, look, if you break this, like, not good, not great. It's going to be a bad deal. And I was like, okay. And the thing that happened 2 years ago that was very crazy. Obviously, it wiped a lot of jobs out, and mine was not certain. But I was like, I really do believe that God wants me to put this book out. So I'm going to go on faith. And I did it. And I kept my job the entire time. I'll tell you this. I also didn't really have the money to do it in the first place. Like I was going paycheck to paycheck, just like barely making it to be able
Just
to
like the
find
rest of us. Yeah.
really.
Dude.
And it was definitely a risk, but
Well, the Lord provides, man.
Yeah.
It really does. And it's not, the rain falls on the just and the unjust alike.
Mm-hmm.
We are not free of torments. We are not free of bad circumstances, bad luck, if you want to call it that,
Mhm.
or decisions, or repercussions and consequences of our bad decisions. I mean, it just stuff happens. Life
stuff
is
happens.
messy, and man, I'll tell you, when I started writing the Heavenly Realms series in like 99, my life got very depressing very quickly. And I firmly believe that the devil, the forces of darkness, the fallen, Satan, whatever they set things. Once you start to do something for God, you are no longer lukewarm.
Mhm.
You're either hot or cold.
Yep.
Depending on your gifts.
Yep.
And what you're called to do.
Yep.
And man,
That's-
dude, you show up on their radar all of a sudden,
Yep.
because what they want is passivity.
Mhm.
They want you to be just like go with the flow and just not do anything. But man, when you decide to do something, when you decide to make some, I mean, the book, The Price of Salvation, theoretically will exist for hundreds of years.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yep.
there's no reason to think that there isn't going to be some moldy paperback, sitting in a basement somewhere that could save somebody's soul a
Yeah.
century or
Yeah.
3 centuries down the line.
Dude,
You
it's spiritual. It's
So the spiritual warfare kicks in,
Yep.
dude, when you decide to do something like that, because you take on a mantle, you go
Yep.
on your own hero's journey.
It's like metaphysical cancel culture. You could almost call it that.
Yeah.
It's like, here's somebody who's decided to do something for the sake of the gospel. We're going to stop it now.
Yeah.
And that's when bad things happen.
And that's
Oh,
when stuff
absolutely.
comes
I mean,
against you.
Yeah, I could look back to when I started publishing The Price of Salvation, and I mean, like I told you guys, I went through a really dark time. It was probably the darkest time that I have ever gone through.
Yeah.
And it was odd because it was pretty bad when I started writing the book, but after the book, it was like, I mean, like everything got like unleashed. It was crazy,
Yeah.
and but that's what kept me going. The idea. I went and gave some books to the local prisons that I have around here.
Oh, cool.
'Cause I remembered thinking to myself, I was like, that's the
awesome.
point of these things. I was
Yeah,
like,
who doesn't need it more than those guys?
yeah, like they're in there, like just hanging out, waiting to finish their sentence. I'm like, well, let me give them a good book to read, and but it was things like that would pop into my brain that I was
Man,
like,
that's
this
a
is
good
what this
idea.
is about.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's
Oh
a
yeah,
really
absolutely.
good ministry.
Yeah, and by the way, it's very easy to do. I'm sure. I mean, it was here. Like you literally just call the prison. And you're like, you guys have a library, and they're all open right now, despite the circumstances.
Yeah.
So you just talk to their educational director, I think is what it is, and the
Yeah.
guy will probably be like, oh yeah, what's it about? And then you tell him like, okay, yeah, we'll pick up a few copies from here. So that's what they did for me. I assume it's like that everywhere. I don't see why it
That's
wouldn't be.
cool.
But
Yeah.
it was very awesome, and I haven't heard anything from anyone there yet, but I hope they send me a note sometime.
Yeah, right.
Dude,
Yeah.
that's awesome. They will. It'll make its mark on someone's soul for sure. One of the most encouraging things I ever heard. It was actually our older brother who told me this because I was going through something really tough, and I think it was a job transition. And he said, "There's a verse in the Bible. I can't remember the reference, but it's become one of my favorite verses to fall back on." He said, I think it's in Proverbs or Psalms, where the author says, I've never seen the righteous forsaken, nor his children begging bread.
Yeah.
So you do what is in your heart to do, what God has told you to do.
Yeah.
He will not leave you high and dry. It might be going from one thing to the next and not knowing tomorrow where your provision's going to come from.
But it will.
But it will
when
come.
it needs to.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there are times where we all struggle, but yeah, I mean, God has a way. I wrestle a lot with that verse. I believe, help thou my unbelief.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah.
I mean, that if you want to like tattoo something on my soul, as far as something I wrestle with, it's that,
for sure.
But I've noticed, like, I had to buy a new vehicle recently, so like I've been in debt for the first time in my life, and it's been amazing how without asking. Without trying to go out and find a different job or a second job, just the Lord provides, and sometimes the Lord does not provide in a way to make you comfortable or to make you uncomfortable or to make you grow,
Right.
and it's, but man, I mean, the enemy's out there too, and you probably pissed a lot of them off. So good for you.
Good.
I heard from them. They made sure that they knew just who I mean. You know what's interesting about that is that I learned during my process of writing Curtains that it's interesting how you can have perspectives. So you can have two perspectives. You can have one which is the devil's out for me and the devil's come to get me, and which is accurate. That is a true perspective. But then you have a different perspective that is, despite that, God allowed this to happen. Like if you look to Job, God actually was like, hey, what's going on, Lucifer? And Lucifer was like, oh, I've just been around, causing trouble, doing a thing. And he's like, have you heard of Job?
Yeah. Consider my servant Job.
Yeah, God was like, hey, I got this guy. His name is Job. You should go mess with him. And and just when I thought about that, I was like, that's wild, because you look at the story of Job, it's one of the most powerful ones to me personally in the Bible, because it's just
the oldest book in the Bible.
Yeah, it's this amazing story of faith that when you really dive into it, you're like, wow, what a faithful guy. And God knew that and was like, yeah, okay, go ahead. So when you know that, then you know that all the things that happen to us, they happen because God's like, yeah, I know he can take it. Go ahead.
Yeah, he knows how big your shoulders are. That's one of the things that just drives me crazy about modern day Christianity. I mean, aside from the feminization of masculinity and men that take place, for the past probably 60 years at least, longer than I've been alive. I'm 38, but dude, it's been around a lot longer than that. But there is this prosperity gospel, aspect to things of well, if you love God and you do what God wants, then God will make your life great and God will bless you. And it's like, yeah, but I think Job being the oldest book in the Bible is I think that's there for a reason, and maybe it's not about, being able to get a G5, maybe, you know what I mean? Maybe it's not about, being able to make a bunch of money off of off of the Great Reset, or whatever. Dude, it's not about that. We are totally in the world, but not of the world. And, this is a house, but it's not our home.
Yeah.
And there's.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. There's something more to it than that. And there are forces at play that will warp the message to convince you that ultimately your own self-gratification and your own happiness are the most important things, and that those are bellwethers of God's favor. And it's not always, man. That's not. I mean, look at what happened to everybody in the Bible who's a good guy.
Yeah,
most of them didn't wind up too great.
Yep.
So maybe this life we live is not the most important life out there. And maybe there's a reason why what we do here matters. So,
yeah, I mean, in context to Job, I mean, a lot of people, there's a prosperity preaching, or what do you call it? It's prosperity gospel. Is that what it's called?
Prosperity gospel.
The actual term. Yeah, it's
the watered down version is the Joel Osteen sort of thing. Not to drop names and get myself in trouble, but I'm used to that by now. Poor Nick scored a little.
No, you're good, man.
Well, it's an interesting thing because it's there's always two. It's hard for people to figure out that straight and narrow path, because there's definitely two polar opposites you can have to it. There's the people who are if you're a Christian, you should be poor and miserable, and that's
right.
And you're I mean, yes, that happens at certain points, but that's that doesn't mean that you can't prosper, mostly spiritually. But then you have the other side of it who take it the other way, and they're like
Copeland kind of.
They're oh, if you love God, then you should have a Mercedes Benz.
Right, yeah. And if you don't have a Mercedes Benz, or if you're not giving me $7,000 so I can have a Mercedes Benz, then you don't love God.
You don't have the faith.
Yeah. Right. And it's man, what about I mean, I could do a whole thing on sell your cloak and buy a sword, but what about just that whole thing of being content with what God gives you?
And that's it. And so the beauty of that is that in Job, another reason why I love his character so much, or I shouldn't say it like that because it makes it sound like it's a tale of fiction, but Job, his character, the person he was, he started out as a pretty wealthy guy. If you read the Bible, he was actually a very well-off guy. He had plenty of cattle, he had a beautiful house, he had a lovely family, and he was a wealthy guy. But God took away everything, even his skin. His flesh was
Yeah.
falling from his bones, and like, so he had nothing. Like, he had sackcloth on while his body was falling apart, and God took all that away. But despite all that, what did Job do? Job didn't go like, well, I was once rich and now I guess, even his wife comes up to him and is like, you should curse God and just die. Like, at this point, and he's like, no, that's not what serving God's about. And, and he goes through all of that suffering for all of that time. And in the end, not only is Job like back to where he was, but he has double of what he had before of everything. And it wasn't because he went out and was like, I'm going to go figure out how to play the stock market and do all this stuff. It's because
he didn't buy crypto.
I'm going to figure out how to invest in Dogecoin at the right time, like all this, this wonderful things that we do today. But it was like God gave him that. He was like, that is my good and faithful servant. And because of this, you are rewarded with this. And again, Old Testament types New Testament. What would that be today? Maybe it is a wonderfully huge house. And if that is the case, I'm happy. But most of those people, if they really, truly can handle it, that's what they'll get. But a lot of times what it is it's like a spiritual surplus of something to attain. And honestly, when you think of it New Testament wise, like, it's like, I've always been under the belief that God will give you exactly what you can handle. So if you can handle 40,000 a year and that's all you can handle, that's what you're going to get. But if you grow in your faith and you go through your trials and you are still faithful to the Lord, maybe that 40 will grow to 80, and maybe that 80 will grow to 200,000. You never know. Like, it's different for everybody, but it shouldn't be like that's your goal. You never want to be like, oh, well,
because then it's just a selfish goal.
Yeah.
Then it's just a material goal, and it's you cannot serve God and mammon.
And the most frustrating thing about it is like, in the case of preachers who will not be named. You have it's like, oh, if you really love the Lord, you have millions in your bank account, and you're like, wow, that sounds awesome. And then what you forget is that 10% of a million is like 100,000. And if you have a church of like 100,000 people giving you 100,000 every like year, well, obviously you're going to want people to make more money.
Of course. Yeah, that's the grift. That's the game. And it's been around for ages. And, there's a reason why Jesus drove those people out of the temple, with a whip, But that's such a great point that, truly, I think about that sometimes. Like, I've been writing since I was 17. I've been writing for 2/3 of my life now, basically. The same novel series, published it, blah, blah, blah. Like, and you get a little, in your darker, more self-pitying moments, you're like, dude, why isn't this like taking off? And then you think, you know what? Maybe I couldn't handle an HBO deal. Like, maybe I couldn't handle you know what I mean? Like,
that's a good point.
Maybe if God gave you that kind of thing, then just like you say, John, you're not equipped to be able to handle it yet, and maybe that's a spiritual growth issue, or maybe just like be happy with what you have. There's especially with writing, there's a big thing about like passion versus paycheck, and that's what defines the artist from the hack, and you can write. I mean, I've been tempted. You can write just because it will sell, and you can do it, and it's as easy as wiping your butt, and it's about the same quality of material on the page, But like at the end of the day, like, why are you doing it? Are you doing it just because you want a houseboat at some point? I mean, houseboats are cool, but what are you putting out into the world, and is it going to be corrosive? Or are you putting something out there that's going to be nutritious to people's, spirits, and I mean, it's a big, and it's a temptation. It's a temptation for a lot of writers,
I mean, absolutely.
It's well said.
Yeah, here's what's interesting is that, I consider myself an artist above everything else, I suppose, right? I can summarize it into the grouping of an artist. I have come to figure out that God is the greatest artist that has ever existed in the history of history. And you can look at it in nature, or you can look at it in the creation of the Bible. I mean, the Bible is a written work, and it's a poetic written work at that. Not only in the literal, like, formative sense, like you can actually read the Bible, like in poetic, what do they call it? Poetic, what's that term? It's like poetic pentameter.
Like meter?
Yeah, poetic meter. You can actually read the Bible in poetic meter, but not
Okay.
only that, it rhymes. Like the whole thing, like New Testament and Old Testament are
Yeah.
like a rhyming parallel. So I'm getting a bit
Hmm.
sidetracked, but that's
Interesting.
art. It's a genuine work forward,
Yeah.
and anything that you produce. I mean, I'm like a super mega artist nerd, I guess, and so for me, I'm like, if I'm going to do something, I want it to be like something that's going to matter, and it
Yeah.
might not make a lot of money, but I really don't care.
Yeah, right? Like it's okay because you don't do it for that. You know,
Right.
you do it because you feel compelled to do it.
Mhm.
You do it like Nick's Travelers League series is so cool because it came out of a place where he literally, correct me if I'm wrong, but Nick literally was telling bedtime stories to his kids.
Yep. Just making stuff up.
And just making
Instead of
stuff
reading,
up.
they didn't want me to read to them. They just said, "Don't read to us. We've read the same old books. Can we just make up a story together?"
Yeah.
My son said that, so that's what we did. I said, "Yeah, sure." There was
That is awesome.
boy named such and such, and he found this old timepiece, and we just started making up one fantasy world after another. Every night it was a new world, and he got so into it that my wife said, "Maybe you should turn this into a book. You should write a kid's book."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "God, I'm not a
Again,
writer."
If maybe most men need to be married. Because
I got to give all the credit to
You know?
my wife. She says, "You should turn it into this." So I'm like, "All right, well, sure." He's
dude,
that
we
into it,
will
I'll
live
write
in
it.
a one-room box, like where the furniture is made out of pizza boxes and old Xbox games. If we are left to our own devices
I
as men,
know.
like there is a big aspect.
My family.
I say that as a single man, but like
no, Brianna and the kids, they've been out of town this weekend, and I've when they're not here, like I eat horribly. Foot long double meat BMT from Subway,
just go deep.
just shoving cookies in my mouth. No, you're
That's
right.
what the writer
Entirely
needs.
letting loose. Yeah.
yeah. That's the benefit of a godly woman,
Yeah.
because I think most men probably need that.
Probably I do for
yeah.
sure. Anyway, off track. Sorry, but no, you're absolutely right.
Great derail.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm good at that. Yeah, I'll just lay that dynamite right on the train and then forget why I was there.
Speaking of outlaws,
yeah, right.
There you go.
Yeah.
awesome. Well, John, we will let you get back to your evening, and we've
thank you,
taken
man.
you like twice as far
know,
as what
dude.
you committed to. I'm so
We're bad
sorry.
about that. Yeah.
Well, that's fine. It was a great time. I'm absolutely okay with that, and I can tell we got a lot more to talk about next time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it
we'll
was
be in
great.
touch on scheduling, because I think we should have some open dates here in the next couple months. And, depending, we'll communicate that and figure out your schedule and whatever works best for you, bud. We'll be happy to, man. I'd love to have you back, dude.
I'm going to order The Price of Salvation. We're going to read it.
Me too.
We're going to keep our eyes open. I'm going to obviously continue to follow you on Instagram, as everyone should.
Yeah.
Follow John on Instagram, and then as you get close to your release date, we'll reconnect and set up another interview.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Sounds good. That sounds like a great idea.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you, John. Appreciate
John,
it.
God bless you, buddy.
God bless you guys. Thank you so much again. We'll see you.
All right.
Absolutely. Have a good night. Dude, how cool.
Man, John Anderson. Great guy, man.
Awesome.
Dude, great guy.
Absolutely awesome. Yeah.
Man.
The Price of Salvation by John Anderson. Available on Amazon.
Yeah.
And Dorrance Books. And what was his website's name?
AndersonBookworks.org.
Anderson Bookworks. I knew it was Bookworks.
Yep.
You know what? One thing I admire about it, we didn't really have a lot of time to talk about it because we were, dude. I was thinking, like, how do I signal to Nick that like we got 5 minutes left?
I
and
know.
we gotta,
I was watching the clock the whole time, like, man, I still have so many questions, and he was so gracious to keep going over.
Yeah, I know.
You
This
know?
is the thing. If you do a Goslings interview, like we pretty much are gonna have to probably do one of two things. Either we're gonna have you for 2 hours and we can have a conversation, or we can do like a 15-minute interview where we just like
where we
talk
go
about
long and
one
make
thing.
30 minutes.
Right, yeah, and then bracket 30 minutes out of your day.
Yeah,
because that's dude, it is, man. It's really tough, and John was super sweet to
he's a great guy.
stay over. Just like Stephen Pressfield, just like Gary Wayne. I think Gary Wayne originally gave us like he was super generous. We were only supposed to get him for an hour, and then he told us that he was going to have 2 hours available.
Yep.
And then we went over 2 hours.
We went over
him.
2 hours, and then like a week later, he emailed and said, "Hey, let's do another interview."
And you're like,
Yes!
yeah. Gary Wayne, do you want to come live at our
Gary
house?
Wade.
Do you
Yeah.
will you come be like our new uncle? Will you, Uncle Gary?
Uncle Gary, man.
I
He's
know,
so
dude.
great.
Yeah.
Well, couple quick announcements about that. One, Natasha Rawls, who was asking the question about Dorn's
Yeah, hey
publishing.
Natasha.
She's gonna be
and
our-
hey Adam as well.
She's an author as well, and a typewriter connoisseur and aficionado. She has
Yeah.
a collection of typewriters. She's going to be our guest on November 7th.
And she's in Memphis. I
Yeah,
believe.
she's our Tennessee neighbor. She's in
Yeah.
Memphis. We're gonna be talking about her book,
Yeah.
and actually, she's written several books, but there's one in particular that I want to really go
Cool.
into.
Okay.
It's kind of about the history of some specific places in Memphis.
Oh, interesting.
It looks really,
Okay.
really interesting. So can't wait. See, she said, "Yay!" Well, we are excited
Yeah.
about interviewing you. It's gonna
We
be
are.
great.
Yeah, we're super stoked.
Yes.
Natasha. Yeah, we can't wait to have you.
And that's on the
Yeah.
7th. And then we have and then Pressfield, Stephen Pressfield,
Yeah.
the one and only Stephen Pressfield.
We
is
just got
coming
that
back.
worked out about 2 hours
Yeah.
before the live stream.
Yeah,
by the way,
we just found out he's
Yeah.
good to go on October
17th
17th. So in 2 weeks, in 2 weeks from today, we're having Stephen Pressfield back
at
on.
high noon Central Standard
Yeah.
Time, baby.
Yes.
In keeping with John Anderson and his Western motif,
Yep.
for the price of salvation. Yeah, I mean, truly, we did. I reached out to Steve probably a couple days ago, and dude, it's been a week. I'll tell you right now. Like, you can go ahead and queue up week in review
All right.
because
Let's do it.
it has been a week. Like, I know some of the stuff that Nick has been dealing with this week. I personally have been working like 14, 16-hour days and then
Oof.
coming home and sleeping and getting up and doing it all over again. I've had like no time to do anything. So all of this that you're experiencing now, whether you're listening to it on Spotify or you're watching it later on Rumble or you're watching it, live on YouTube, dude, this is like Nick's burden that he has had to drag through the mud, like an old cowboy dragging his dying horse through the cracked
Well, we got
tundra
lucky.
of
We got lucky. No, we both work 9 to 5s, right? We both work
Mhm.
9 to 5s. On top of that, it's festival season because we're going into fall, which means
Oh,
you're
that's right.
you're filling up your weekends with different gigs and nights and weekends,
security
right?
gigs.
Yeah, you do security gigs on top of your 9 to 5, and
Yeah.
me this past week in particular, on top of my 9 to 5, we lost everything on our computer. Everything
Yeah.
shut down. I had to wipe
It
the
was
hard
Apple
drive.
Armageddon.
It was like
Applegeddon.
whatever your Macintosh, the worst possible thing your Mac can do is
Yeah.
what mine did. And
Right.
so I
yeah.
had to rectify that, and it took a few days. To
They
get
only
all
do two
back up.
things. They run and they die. They're like a, you know what I mean? Like they're like a racehorse.
gazelle.
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
they're like a
basically the
greyhound. They
gazelles
run
of
and they
computers.
die.
Yeah,
I drink and I know things, and Apple computers they run and they die. And poor Nick,
Exactly.
man, he died. It died on him. And you actually, I feel bad because I actually got some text messages from him for like
I
some
didn't sleep that
security
night.
codes.
I didn't sleep at all that night. I was
No
so
kidding.
stressed. I was like, I can't believe I lost everything. I have to take this in. I got to figure out
Yeah.
what's wrong. I don't have $2,000 to buy another.
Oh, God.
A
and they're
system.
expensive too. I mean, that's
Dude.
the thing; they're not cheap.
I shouldn't have lost sleep over it, but I did.
Yeah.
You can't
Well, it's
control it.
human. It's very human.
I get
Yeah.
restless leg in my forearms.
Do you really?
Yeah, like this muscle right here starts
Interesting.
tingling. Oh, it's awful.
Yeah, I get that too. That's just the impending heart attack.
Oh,
from the
good.
stress.
Good.
Yeah.
It's science.
It's just from where you stuff it down deep. You can't just pet a puppy. You can't just hold a puppy and love him.
It's great.
Anyways, John Anderson, big shout out to him. Want to say thank you to John Anderson, author of The Price of Salvation and author of the upcoming book Curtains, available on Amazon and the websites that we will list later, which are Dorrance. What is it? Dorrance Publishing.
Yeah.
And
Dorrancebooks.com and then AndersonBookworks.org.
AndersonBookworks.org. Yeah, very cool concept.
Yeah.
Westerns are great. We all, as men, we love Westerns. We've loved Westerns for a very long time. And it's and Westerns tend to be fairly conservative with like some very subtle Christian undertones or symbolism involved in them.
Well, I think the people who are pushing out west,
Yeah.
it were traditional value people just kind of looking for a new opportunity.
Yeah.
And then they run into danger, outlaws, native, Indians,
tribes,
famine, you name it.
Yeah, drought.
Harsh life.
Yeah.
And they're trying to press into that to make just make a home for themselves, a new beginning for themselves, based on their their values, their faith, their family, their freedom, just like John said. So they're up against quite a bit.
Yeah.
And so and any Western necessarily is set in that climate.
Yeah.
So there are natural tensions that come along with that setting.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. I'm really excited to read it.
Yeah. And it truly is, like, I say this with no pretense at all. It truly is a beautiful cover.
Yeah.
That cover is killer. And John, you'll have to, if you're not watching this live, if you're listening to this later, you want to go to Rumble and watch the actual live stream. Towards the beginning, John showed us on his smartphone the original sketch.
Yeah, that was wild, wasn't
that
it?
he had given to the graphic designer. And Nick and I know, as two people who have wrestled with cover designers for years now, like Dorrance Books did a bang up job on his cover, and
very nice.
And he did his advice to be like very specific is really good advice. Because you have to articulate, if it's very detailed in your head, you have to articulate that to somebody else, because no one can get in your head. That seems like a duh statement, but truly, when you start involving other people and you're not a one-man show anymore, and if you want to be successful, you can't be a one-man show.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
You need to, if it's important enough to you to maintain that specificity, you have to be detailed in that, and that's a real discipline. That's a skill. That's a muscle that you build. That's, you might be born with that talent of articulation, or in my case, verbosity. But but like for most people, that really is something that you have to hone into. And I am genuinely impressed by John Anderson's cover of The Price of Salvation. That actually is really,
and at 24,
good.
Which makes me really jealous.
Dude, 24 years old.
Jelly over here.
Dude, I think let's see, how old was
awesome.
I in 24? I was at 24, or what year was it in it was 2007 when I was 24 years old. Which was probably like the deepest, darkest year of my life, and also strangely the most productive. I had not published yet, obviously. I mean, even still, self-published through Amazon, but I had a stack of rejection letters from publishers and agents, but I was writing like a madman. I wrote Sturm und Drang during that time.
I wish I had started writing when I was 24. I didn't know I was going to write anything till I was 40.
Yeah, well, that's the interesting thing. Like, that's kind of the cool journey, and that's why Nick and I kind of make good foils for each other, because I've been doing this since I was in probably
17, right?
Well, I've been doing the Heavenly Realms series since I was 17, but I mean, even before that, I don't really ever talk about it because it never got off the ground. But there was a sci-fi book that I was trying to write since like the 8th grade.
Oh, wow. Dang.
Yeah, I mean,
it's in your bones, man.
Right. It's always been there, and it's always kind of been like a rocket ship that you can never quite get the flaps right on, to get it off the launch pad.
Right.
But the lessons I learned took me probably 10 years to learn. And then I watched Nick come along, and he didn't even tell me he was doing this. Like, he told me when it was published.
Well,
because that's Nick's style.
Well, in all fairness, it's the first time I had written.
When he was 40.
Yeah, but it's the first thing fiction I had ever written.
Yeah,
I'd written lots of essays, things
and
for
you
school,
have a
things for myself.
degree.
Yeah, I'm constantly journaling all my life, even through my teenage years.
Yeah,
journaling, writing things. A lot of them were more theologically oriented.
Yeah,
but I never wrote fiction ever
until
this whole deal with the Travelers League and telling my kids these stories, and my wife saying, "Hey, you need to turn it into a book." I'm like, I never thought about writing fiction.
Right.
Give it a try.
It's been super cool watching Nick.
I love movies. I love telling stories.
Yeah, we've always loved movies.
Yeah,
but it's been really neat watching Nick go through that journey in a matter that took me probably the better part of 10 to 15 years to learn these lessons and figure these things out in a vacuum. Nick at 40 learned these lessons in a matter of about 2 years. So I mean, it was a bullet train compared to my old 20th century locomotive.
Yeah.
And early 20th century locomotive, the kind you could still rob if you had a horse.
Outlaws.
Exactly. So it's I ultimately think that you weren't supposed to do that until you were 40.
I think that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that too.
And that's Pressfield talks about that. Stephen Pressfield talks about how like he didn't have any success till he was really in his 40s.
Yeah, dude.
That guy... he did write King Kong Lives, which I will be honest, like Nick and I watched King Kong Lives when we were little, and we really liked it. So
yeah. And the great thing, there's so many things to love about Stephen Pressfield.
Yeah, no kidding.
But what I took away from the thing that just punched me in the nose, from our last interview with him, our first interview, was he wrote for 30 years. He wrote novels for 30 years before his first book was published.
Yeah.
When I realized, when that fell on me and I understood what that meant.
Yeah.
I just I'm like, it has nothing to do with, will it be published? Will I make money from it? It's just, if it's in you, you have to write it, and you got to keep failing and failing and failing and failing. And just creating the stories, and you get better and stronger and sharper in your skill along the way. And then eventually it'll happen. Yeah. But it's not going to happen before it's supposed to.
It'll happen. I really do think that nowadays. And there's a piece in that, a very
freaking 30 years.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Yeah. You know what? He's the genuine article. He's not a hack.
I was explaining it to somebody last night at the security gig. I described Pressfield as like the Yoda of authors. The Yoda of guru, or the guru of writers, the Yoda of creative.
He's a writer's writer.
He's a writer's writer. And you think how long it takes somebody to get to that point, and and that probably is kind of his writer's curse in the sense, like, he and I probably are alike in the sense that we both have been doing this for a very long time, but there's nothing wrong with, like, if you're 35, and you think, oh, I'm too old to write a book. No, you're not. Like, dude,
no, you're not.
No, you're definitely not. If you're 45, you're 55, you're 65, write a book. If it's in you, do it.
Yeah.
If you're 15 and you're watching this, do it. Who cares? It doesn't cost you anything but time, and it's going to be bugging you the whole time anyways.
Yep.
And maybe you're meant to do it, and maybe something will come of it, and maybe it won't, but like, it's not really for you to decide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like Herman Melville.
Yeah.
You think about his book, Billy Budd Sailor, Moby Dick. There was another big one that he wrote that's not coming to mind. He wrote all those things. None of them were published.
Yeah.
Until he died.
Yeah.
He's famous posthumously. Moby Dick. Herman Melville.
Moby Dick. Yeah. Arguably the greatest American novel. In a lot of ways.
Yeah. One of the greatest American novelists ever
written. Posthumous. It's the same thing with H.P. Lovecraft. H.P. Lovecraft had very minor, modest success during his time on this earth, and he was not alive for very long. I don't think he made it to 40, if I remember correctly. I think he died in his early to mid 30s. But nowadays, 100 years later, he's practically a household name. Everybody's heard of Cthulhu. Everybody, a lot of people have heard of the Mountains of Madness. The Color Out of Space has been turned into a Nick Cage movie. It's just it's so different.
That movie.
But truly, he was a guy who he got some stuff published in some magazines and some periodicals, and he was friends with Robert Howard, the Conan the Barbarian.
Oh, okay.
Inventor.
I didn't know that. Yeah, wow.
Yeah. But it's the same thing. If you're a writer, you don't do this because you want money. If you're wanting money, writing books is not the game. Trust me.
Quit saturating Amazon.
Yeah. Geez, no kidding. The hacks are just, it's a forest of bamboo that you got,
Boy, it's the truth.
And
because you know what you get when you do that? You know what the hacks do?
Yeah.
The hacks find whatever current agenda is being pushed, and they write
piggyback onto it.
Yep, and they piggyback onto it.
Yeah.
so they can get, in 20, 30 years, things are going to look different. People are going to probably value some things differently, and those books are going to be trash.
Oh, they're going to be so dated too. That's the other thing. I mean, you almost don't want to like say this out loud, but the hilarious thing is you want to talk about being like hoisted by your own petard. The people who
Posthumously.
yeah, they dig you up for it.
Yeah.
The people who piggyback on current trends and stuff, just because they want to make a dime, off of whatever is going on. Like, dude, in 2 years, not even 5 or 10 years, in 2 years, they're going to turn around and look at their own stuff and and they're going to be the butt of a joke.
Yep.
For it,
yes, because they're treating the creative process. Their book is a keyword.
Yeah,
is a search key term.
It's almost like a creative. It's like a creative process form of adultery. It's like cheating on the muse in a way.
Yeah, from the outset.
Yeah, from the outset.
Before I write a book, let me search trends.
Yeah, and see what's popular.
See what popular title I can come up with, and then I'll make a book about that.
I mean,
it's awful.
Well, and it's hard to go like to the other side of that. It's hard as a passion-driven writer. Because I'll tell you right now, like I've had the idea for Sasquatchalypse for the better part of 7 years at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not an old concept. If I really zeroed in and struck while and focused in and wrote that book, I could really strike while the iron is hot. I mean, truly, that book should have probably been written and self-published maybe 2 or 3 years ago. But Bigfoot is a thing that has kind of sustained itself. It's not quite as popular now as it was a few years ago. When Bobcat Goldthwait made the movie, and then Joe Rogan had the TV show, that was really the time to that was when the iron was hottest.
Yeah.
But the truth is, the book, became something more the longer I sat with it, and it's not priority. It'll come out when it comes out.
Yeah.
There are other things like I got the last 2 Heavenly Realms books that I have to focus on, and you're sacrificing something when you do that.
Yeah.
When you make that decision, but you kind of have to make that decision if you're an artist, and I mean, the starving artist motif is archetypal for a reason.
Yeah.
And if you want to write books, like, yeah, dude, you better get used to that, or you're going to be a hack. And no one's going to respect you, and you don't deserve any respect. I mean, that's the thing that a lot of people don't like to hear.
Yeah, that's hard. That's hard to hear, but it's the truth.
It's the truth. Maybe you don't deserve respect if you're just pursuing it because you want to piggyback on some trends. You want to hitch your wagon to a Luciferian star of sorts.
Well said. Perfect.
I mean, if you want to be the harlot riding on that beast, baby, at some point, you got to go home and look at yourself in the mirror.
I know.
Smash them all.
You're leaving something behind. What are you leaving behind?
Yeah, what are you leaving behind? I mean, that's the other thing too that people don't think about, is because there is so much about leftist culture, which is culture. It is pop culture. That's the thing that no one wants to admit is that leftist progressive Luciferian ideology is the dominant cultural force. Turn on your TV if you don't believe me. But it is all about instant or self-gratification. And what no one thinks about, especially, in their non-believing state, is like, dude, you'll die at some point and that book will still exist, and your children might have to answer for that book,
Ouch, ouch, ouch.
Yeah. So,
ooh.
Anyways,
man,
on to Typewriter 1.
Yeah, that was good stuff. That was good stuff, dude. No. Yeah, let's do Typewriter one-offs. Part of our weekly live stream where we come together as writers, and because we're a writers group, we have to write something.
Yep.
And we do that, and we're required to do it on a typewriter, a one-page something on a typewriter, and then we read it for all of you to shred.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Or enjoy. You never know.
Sure. So we usually settle this with rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, we never can decide who goes first, so we've resorted to rock. And we actually did rock, paper, scissors since like early on, like our second or third time doing this.
I think so. Yeah.
Let's just leave it up to fate.
Yeah, let's leave it up to chance. Let's roll the dice.
Yeah.
So,
ready?
Yeah,
let's
ready?
do it.
All right. 1, 2, 3, shoot. 1, 2, 3, shoot. 1, 2, 3, shoot. There
You
we
got
go.
me.
Start
All
to
right.
pick up on the pattern.
All right. Is this the right one? I did. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This is the one.
All right. Cool. Ooh, single spaced. Yeah.
Single spaced.
That's what I like to see.
I did it on my signet over there behind Jonathan, the little blue guy.
Oh yeah. Okay.
1962 Royal Signet. Did that today.
There it is.
Yeah.
Right. Man, I would have made a horrible meteorologist. I want to get a meteorologist job just because I'm so terrible at this.
That would be a
And it would
great
be
show,
really
man.
funny.
That'd be a great show.
You know, over in California, it's like 42 degrees. I mean, Maine, you know. But in New Mexico, it's really beautiful, and you should all go there to visit, and then spend your money and leave. You know? Anyways,
All right, here we go. I parked on the side of the building. People were pushing and shoving their cars into the rows in front of the entrance, those parking spaces being the prime real estate for the fatties of the world. Those being full, the anxious and angry fatties had to move farther and farther back, down the row of parking spaces. And the farther they had to park from the entrance, the more walking they'd have to do, the more exposure to the weather, the public eye, the more visible and awkward they would be. Lumbering, waddling, every step a stab of pain somewhere in their comorbidity-ridden flesh suits. Thus, their irritability increased the farther back from the entrance they had to park. And God help the clerk that had to serve them when they reached the store. The long voyage over pavement wilderness, traversed on foot. By the time they began their shopping, they were tuckered out from the day's calisthenics, and their anger and irritability peaked from the joint and back pain fueled by the awkwardness of being seen walking across the parking lot. The walk of shame. The I suck at finding a good space shuffle. I see all of this unfold when I pull off the main road and drift my car towards the store. I don't care to participate in the game of high-stakes bumper cars and have no desire to push or shove my way into any public place. God, people are awful to each other when they drive, aren't they? It's hard to keep a clean heart before God when some diabetes-riddled, out-of-state transplant baby boomer ogre careens into a parking space, then honks at you for daring to race her for it. I feel the naughty words bubbling up inside, just writing about it. So I skip all that nonsense, the parking lot duel of fates, and just park on the side of the stores. 9 times out of 10, I walk less than half the distance when I do. And it's all paved sidewalk around the building, right up to the entrance, too. I don't have to play Frogger in the tossing sea of ogre drivers. And if they'd paid 2 seconds of attention to what they were doing, they could rid themselves of a few seconds of life's sorrows, as their life is nothing but bitterness and conflict, if they just park on the side like me. Grocery stores, gas stations, movie theaters, shopping malls, restaurants, churches, you name it. If it has a parking lot, the parking spaces on the sides of the building are always a better bet. Parking on the side of the stores really is the self-checkout of parking strategies. It's a hack, a cheat code, a skipping the line that always, and I mean always, yields a healthier state of mind both before and after the actual shopping. I'm going to make sure I teach my kids to park on the side. It's easier to find your car when you do, easier to get a full shopping cart to it, and in most cases, easier to steal a quick scratch of your unmentionables if needed, without the public eye of condescension. So park on the side. Walk to your car leisurely, pick your nose, scratch your nuts, sing loudly. Know that the only people who can see you are those of like mind, who park theirs on the side too. Form an alliance, organize, shop as a happy cohort, shove your middle finger into the face of convention. Gleefully and nimbly dance around the ogres, pushing and shoving their carts up and down the aisles. Spend an extra $1 or $2 on that box of cereal. Don't quibble and agonize over the fine print on the back of your coupons. Cast your coupons into the fire of self-love. Let the ogres clip coupons. Let the unhappy choke on their food stamps. And give them leeway to cannibalize each other in the parking lot as they go to war over the parking spaces that lie before the entrance. Park on the side. Take your kids. Make a day of it. Then go get ice cream while you talk about human nature and why people are so terribly awful to each other.
So in other news, Nick goes to Walmart for the first
Dude, I
time
do
in
at
2
Walmart
months.
too. I park on the side of Walmart. I'm not dealing with that mess. You kidding? Dude, Kroger and Walmart, park on the side.
Oh, there's beautiful.
And the theater. The theater,
Yeah.
dude, just park on the side of the theater building.
Yeah. You just park off to the side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I gotta get this space. I want this space.
But I want this one.
But I want.
I have to have the space, the next available space closest to the entrance, or I will crush you.
I will drive around this parking lot for 30 minutes until I get a close space.
Dude, not only the trying to get to a space before someone else, but seriously, when you park on the side, you don't have to walk through a parking lot of people racing their cars to get to a space. It's like there's no anxiety when you do this. Why don't people do this?
This is such a Nick rant.
Oh,
This is the most Nick,
dude,
this is the most Nick Goss thing Nick has ever written.
dude. This thing has changed my life.
This is the hill that Nick has decided to plant his flag on.
Absolutely.
The jab, you know,
Not so
the
much.
mask.
No, but I'm parking on the side of the store. We're parking on the side. We don't play that game. I got my sanity to think of. Seriously, park on the side, folks. It will change your freaking lives.
This is a man who has lived in Spring Hill for too long.
This town is so crowded.
It's
Oh my
time.
gosh.
this town needs an enema, and this brother needs a nap. It's so funny.
Yes.
You know what I appreciate about that is that like you know, Nick and I will we don't get to hang out a lot during the week because we, like Nick said, we both have 9 to 5s. But you know, every now and then on the weekend we do this, and then we go out to dinner, and then we, you know, hang out. And I often wonder, like, when Nick is driving, you know, what's Nick thinking? Because I'm very
naughty words always. when
yeah,
I'm
like
driving.
I'm very
Always.
internal and maladjusted, you know, and just like angry all the time. And but I'm like a type A personality, so I'm very like narcissistic and vocal about it, you know. And but Nick is very internal. And I often wonder whenever I'm riding around with Nick, like, I wonder what he's thinking right now, especially if like the person in front of us brake checks or, you know, or someone cuts him off. So I love these little stories like this because this is like glimpses into the,
Dude, I had the
into
thoughts
the mind of Nick.
Here, a glimpse into my mind earlier today. I
love it.
was driving back. I got a haircut. As you can see.
Yeah, it does
And
look good.
I had to go
Yeah.
through the Kroger parking lot to get to great
Great
clips.
quote unquote. Yeah, great. clips.
But on the way home, I thought it dawned on me. I was like, oh my God, I know how to save countless lives.
Insanity.
Turn signals.
Yeah. Turn signals.
Because I almost got hit because someone almost pulled out in front of me.
of course.
And they would have if I didn't have my turn signal on. I was
Mhm.
like, I saved my life.
Yeah.
I'm sure how many accidents could be anyway.
Yeah, it's sort of like when I'm going to work and there's as I'm like getting onto a certain road, I have to turn right, and a lot of the people coming down the road, it's a 2-lane road, but it's pretty busy in the mornings, and a lot of people will have their left turn signal on, but further down, I have to turn right, but further down on my right, like right next to me, there is a gas station.
Mm-hmm.
So there will be cars approaching with their right turn signal on. And it's always a bit of a gambit of like, are they turning, you know, can I go ahead and pull out because they're turning onto the road that I'm leaving?
Mhm.
Or are they going 50 feet down to turn into the gas
Past
station?
where I'm trying to pull out onto
Past
the
where
road.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to, yeah. And yeah, turn signals, baby.
Mm.
Yeah. And there's nothing like truly the older you get, the
Don't
more
use
like,
them too early. Don't use them too late.
right.
It's not.
Yeah, within 50 to 100 feet of where you're turning. You
Right.
know, that's where you're supposed
It's
to.
not rocket surgery, folks.
I mean, we
You
can't
just use your
we can't
turn
all
signal.
we can't all be the brightest knife in the sky. You know? I said that to a friend last night, and he was like, "Star," and I was like, "Exactly." So we're both dumb.
That's so good.
But
That's so good.
you know, so yeah, dude, I'll tell you, like the older you get, the crankier you get, and
True.
truly, like one
Yep.
thing that like drives me bananas is when people just don't use their turn signal
At all.
like at all.
Because there are like 3 seconds of my life that they wasted. Because I
Yeah.
could have turned out. I could have pulled out on the road if I knew they were going to turn. I didn't.
Yeah,
If they were going to straight,
there are
I'd wait
things
for
that
them.
could have been done.
Like, that's 3 seconds of my life you just stole.
Yeah,
You know, and then I
took
get-
from me.
And then I start
Yeah.
imagining what they look like without skin.
Yeah, I start wondering what their house would smell like on fire. You know?
Exactly.
With
I
the
started.
screams-
I bet my dog could eat your dog,
Yeah, with
and I want to find out.
what the screams of their children sound like rising into the starry night. You know. Anyways,
Speaking of screams with their children, what did
so,
you write?
Follow us on Facebook. We haven't done this in 2 weeks.
Great.
So, you know. Yeah.
I'm gonna move my microphone for you some more.
All right, sure. Okay. On that note, I'll go ahead and yeah, I'll take a little bit more. Yeah, I think I've had like, well, we won't say. Okay. Here's my one-off. Peregrine burned. Tomar and Asculum were at it again. This time it was over some crop-topped, ginger-haired pixie whose fair-skinned freckles were obscured by pagan tattoos. I could tell by the mascara running down her quivering cheeks that she was out of her element, though this would not be her first rodeo. She was the prize, they were the gladiators, and the Holocaust of Peregrine was their arena. I spot the silver and jade palm-sized belly button piercing flop against her taut little stomach beneath the black sash that barely covers her young, nubile body. She is no Vestal virgin plucked from the temple, but these two are about to give her a run for her money. Spoils of war. I turn a blind eye to this kind of base behavior. These men are no heroes, but they are not blackguards either. As a commander of this legion, I have come to understand enough of human psychology to know that this sort of release is necessary to keep the men in line. It has been a long road, a hard war, and Peregrine was a tough nut to crack. Would I prefer them to rape and pillage? No. Do I let them? Only insofar as I don't have to see it, and it keeps the machine moving. The enterprise does not falter for the sake of niceties or sentiment. Though we consider ourselves crusaders in this holy war, I accept that war is not void of innocent blood. I would prefer to hold the men to a higher standard, but that I reserve for God. As their commander, I am responsible for the actions of my men. I am not, however, responsible for the choices that they make in their hearts. Everything has consequences. They will answer to God's lake of fire, if not my hangman's gallows. But all that can wait. The truth is that I need Tomar and Asculum. They are integral to the enterprise. Tomar's sappers will be invaluable when we reach Abaddon's walls. Asculum's engineers will be needed to get us over and through those walls, if and when Tomar fails. I am not above enlisting whatever it takes to succeed. I'd kiss a Leviathan's sulfurous orifice if it meant accomplishing the mission. Eyes set like flint. I plant a boot in the mud between their faces as they wallow in the muck. They cease their pancreations upon sight of the red and gold stitching across my steel toe. Are these two of my best officers? I ask, or a pair of wild dogs scrapping in the slop? They immediately scramble to attention, backs rigid. Do I need to provide arbitration on this matter, or can you two tribunes settle it like the men I knew you to be upon our departure from Paladin's sojourn? I throw a deliberate glance to the distressed damsel before returning a level gaze to the two officers. They trip over themselves to apologize and swear fealty to a peaceable resolution. In the end, I nod, salute them, and turn my back on the situation. I'll set the sergeant major on them as watchdog. Perhaps my sin is permissiveness. This girl could be a priestess or a trollop. hard to tell with these pagans. We are, after all, a sheltered bunch. But war is messy, and victory is costly. And Abaddon's walls await us, high and stout and bristling with Nephilim armament. And the fallen lurk in between. I can take no chances. God be with us. God forgive us.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, you know, it'd be really interesting. That's awesome. It's a cool scene. You know, a leader despised at the behavior of those under his command, but still needing them to accomplish the bigger mission.
Yeah.
And you know, we should ask Gary Wayne about Abaddon.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder what he would have to say.
Yeah, because Abaddon, I think, is the name of the angel, or the not the beast, but the angel that's released from the abyss.
Yeah.
You know, I can't remember if it's before. I think it's right before Armageddon or something.
Yeah.
But it'd be interesting to know. And I want to ask Gary Wayne too about the council in Job, the council of the angels that come before God. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, because Satan's among them, and they all
Yeah.
have counsel before God.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be interesting to ask Gary Wayne about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I love how you write the unit leaders in your stories. Like, they, for the most part, they have their own things that they struggle with, but they always sound so stalwart in purpose.
That's a good word for it.
Yeah.
Stalwart. Yeah.
And those under their command are often less sure of themselves.
Yeah.
They know that
Yeah.
they have to obey orders, but when, you know, but they're not in as much command of themselves.
Yeah.
You know, and a leader is someone who has kind of mastered themselves in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. That's true. I never really thought about that, but I think you're right. A lot of that comes from having good leaders in my life. You know, Delta being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Working with a lot of guys who have gone through some sort of leadership training. You know, whether it was you know, on the government dime or in the private sector.
Yep.
Having a lot of friends who are older, mentor figures. You know, the irony is that, like, I know in my heart of hearts that I'm definitely more of a Tomar and Ascalon, you know, than I am, you know, whoever the leader is. But you see the value in the leader, and that's who you
I
emulate.
disagree. I think you're more like the leader.
Oh, that's sweet. That just means you're a Tomar.
No, no, those Tobar and Absalom, you know, those thoughts, those inclinations and desires are things that every man has.
We do. Yeah.
Everyone can envision themselves, and they can see that's I know I could be that low.
Yeah.
I know I could participate.
I could get into a
That's my
fight with
weakness.
another comrade.
Yeah.
We're on the same side over some whore that we both want to rape.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like, I mean, how much, you know, more pathetic does it kind of get?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and we can all see how we could be brought to that base level.
Yeah.
I think that's human nature.
Yeah.
Particularly men.
Yeah.
But you know,
we
it's
get
not-
things done.
it's not your it's not your thoughts and temptations that define you.
That's true.
It's what you do.
It's your choice.
Yeah, it's
That
what
was
you
always-
say and what your acts are. That's
And
you.
really, even, yeah, I think it is like what you do even more than what you say, because people can say a lot of things. People can talk a lot of trash, but at the end, and people can talk a big game too.
Mhm. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you are defined. I personally think, I mean, you know, yes, what you say matters, but I think you're defined more by what you do
Sure.
than what you say, how you spend your time and energy,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because that's a finite resource.
Yeah, and there's this deceptive message out there among, you know, influencers and motivators right now, where it's all about no negative self-talk, no negative self-talk.
Self-love.
Yeah, affirmations, do all that, and there's an element of truth to that. I'm not throwing that out.
There's also a
completely.
bit of thou dost protest too much.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
and the reason is, you know,
Like,
because
who are you trying to convince?
I'm learning this with my kids,
Yeah.
that, you know, they'll have a thought and they'll think they're a bad person for having a bad thought.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's not what you
Yeah.
think that, you know, and the fact of the matter is there are dark forces in the world. There
Yeah.
are evil forces, and those thoughts oftentimes those negative thoughts aren't yours.
Yeah.
Those are the flaming darts, the fiery arrows.
Yeah. The
You know,
firebrands.
those are being sent at you from outside sources, and it's what you do with those thoughts that matters.
Yeah.
You know, so you can have those dark inclinations,
Yeah.
but it's what you the devil is definitely trying to throw those thoughts at everyone, especially if you're a believer.
Yeah.
It's what you do when your transmitter picks them up.
Yeah,
it's what you do then.
Well, that's an important thing to teach to children, especially, in a Christian household, to sort of prevent them from developing a sense of self-loathing, because you can't do anything. There's not much you can do about the thoughts in your head, but there is a lot that you can do everything about what thoughts you entertain. And what thoughts you shut out, and what thought, like, I remember, we're in potato cam after party.
Oh, potato cam after party. Let me switch over. Thank
Give
you.
me my pit vipers.
Oh, yeah.
I have PVs. Give me my PVs before we switch over.
Here you go. Switch over.
I gotta
Ladies and gentlemen, don't click off. Don't click off.
I gotta get my dope energy on.
3, 2, 1. Oh, I should put my hat on. No, it's all right. 3, 2, 1. Bam.
Do it. Yeah.
Potato cam after. Oh, let me get the caption up. This is real talk now, folks. When our battery on our good camera dies, and we have to use the webcam.
Yeah.
That looks like it's being filmed through a jar of peanut butter.
Peanut butter and jelly. What did Adam call it? Peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah,
peanut butter.
We used to call it the potato cam.
Yeah.
And then Adam Burrell, our beloved narrator and great friend from the UK, said, "It looks like you're filming it through peanut butter." I'm like, dude, peanut butter cam, dude,
peanut butter cam,
amazing.
Yeah.
All right, I gotta put something on. I'm feeling left out. At least get my awesome tiki hat here.
While we're on the subject, I want to go ahead and give a shout out to Adam Burrell, Burrell. Oh yeah, that little was that like a corn
I'll make
cob,
it work.
Corn cob hat?
No, it's kind of like my tiki lounge hat.
Okay,
doesn't fit very well. Nah, I look like a dork.
All the better. All the better.
Or I look dorkier. There we go.
I
look like I yodel. I look real German now.
Nick is getting in touch with his German
roots. Doesn't work
here.
with his headphones. You know what though?
No,
I actually don't need the headphones.
Yeah,
we don't have a guest, so I'm gonna take my headphones. We don't need headphones.
Yeah,
I can put this on. I can look kind of normal-ish. There we go. That's better.
Don't need headphones.
And if you guys will notice, I have got this neat little pin that came with my Blurry Creatures shirt.
Nice.
They sent me a pin too.
Oh, that's
so I
right.
wear it on my cap. Blurry Creatures.
Blurry Creatures, baby.
Yeah,
filmed in, I think they do that out of Franklin, right? They're just like 10 miles up the road.
Yeah, dude, right down the road.
Yeah, cool peeps.
I would love to interview them sometime or talk to them or meet them.
Yeah, we
they're
gotta connect with them at some point.
They're so good at what they do, and their podcast is amazing.
Yeah, it is really good. And they've had Gary Wayne on.
Yeah. Actually. Oh yeah. A couple times, I think.
Really?
I
cool.
think so. Or
Gary's
maybe not.
awesome.
Maybe they've only had him once, and we'll have him twice.
Take
that, Blurry Creatures.
That's a pit vapor energy.
Yeah.
No, that's so a big shout out to Adam Burrell. Anybody who doesn't know, Nick and I obviously are a couple of novelists, and we publish independently on Amazon. All our links are below. Nick writes the Travelers League and the Henry Half Moon series, and then I write the Heavenly Realms series. And killer covers, great books. Lots of fun, logos driven is probably a good way to describe them.
Exactly.
And then all the audiobooks are done by Adam Burrell. In fact, he's re-recording your early books that were not done by him, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah,
that is correct.
And Nick's early audiobooks are great, but in order for consistency to be what it is, I guess there's a version 2.0. Adam is from the UK, and he's English. And he's incredibly gifted at what he does, and we love Adam dearly. He's a great friend of ours, sterling silver human being.
Yeah,
father is an Anglican priest. His kids are adorable.
Yeah,
they're the sweetest, most quintessential British kids, English kids you could ever ask for. They're so cute. They're like every now and then they pop up on the live stream, like they'll come into frame. It's adorable. Yeah. And his wife Dee is super sweet, and she makes
talented too.
She's extremely talented. She does resin products, little trinkets, trays, coasters. I think maybe she's done some earrings
And bookmarks.
and bookmarks. Some
Some
Heavenly
good looking
Realms.
bookmarks.
Dude, she did some killer Heavenly Realms bookmarks. She did the coasters
Yeah, she's got
that we
her.
have here, the Heavenly Realms coasters,
Yeah,
or the excuse me, the Gosslings coasters. So we're big fans of the Burrows, man. They are an awesome family, and if you're watching this, especially if you're listening to it, and you listen to it because maybe you're a fan of John Anderson or you're interested in publishing a book. When it comes to making an audiobook, when it comes time for that, Adam Burrow's your man.
Yeah,
Dude, he's awesome.
yeah, for sure.
He's kind of like the Alan Rickman of the audiobook world.
Yeah, he
and
does.
yet he can do accents.
Yeah, he can. Well, he's
So-
familiar with all. I didn't realize there was such a diverse array of accents that represent the British Isles.
Oh
but,
yeah, the UK.
he can do
accents,
them
yeah.
all, and when he does them, you're like, oh yeah, I've heard that before.
I know,
Oh, yeah,
and
I
it's
had no
so
idea.
he's so genius.
Oh, that's Liverpool. Oh, that's London. Oh,
Yeah.
that's
He did a what is it, like a North Shore accent for one of my characters, Ulrich Savad,
Mhm.
and which is represented by in Game of Thrones, the character of Jon Snow.
mm-hmm.
That kind of, no, we're going to go beyond the wall. That
Mhm,
like it's a very distinctive North Shore accent, and I butchered it. I'm sorry, Adam.
It's all right.
But in looking back, even though the books are written ages ago, before Kit Harington became Jon Snow, and gave breathe life into that character, you look at it and you're like, yeah, that kind of works. Like I can see those two characters kind of being the same because they're same age.
Mhm.
They kind of operate the same. They kind of run the same gear. Like I see what he did there. He's genius.
Mm.
Yeah, Adam.
He's-
Adam
yeah.
will do things to your book that he will add dimensions to your book that you did not know were possible to exist.
Yeah.
It's been really impressive. So Adam Burrell, he's
Adam Burrell.
yeah, he's awesome. He's on Instagram. He's on Twitter as well, and then he has a YouTube channel. We usually post his links below. I think it's at Adam Narrates
Mm-hmm.
on Instagram.
I
So
don't
he's
have it up here. I
he's
don't
pretty
have that
killer.
cap.
We have a caption for him. Yeah, we
Well-
love Adam though, and he's been a guest on the
Yeah,
live stream before.
Yeah, there it is.
several
Adam
times.
narrates, yeah.
And you should tune in, dude. His ghost stories were killer. We gotta see about. I gotta reach out to him and
Yeah.
figure out doing a Halloween episode.
Yeah.
About ghost stories. Man.
And I actually, yeah.
They had some
I've sent
killer
out-
ghost stories.
Oh, I know. I love a good ghost story, and it
Yeah.
would be awesome to have some ghost stories for Halloween. Maybe we should do Adam, because I actually sent an email to a guy named Brent Monahan,
yeah.
who wrote the book The Blair Witch: An American Haunting, the one they made the movie out of.
Oh,
I
yeah.
haven't heard back from him. It's probably way too short notice, but that would have been perfect for Halloween.
Yeah, sure.
But I haven't heard back. But to get some ghost stories, like Adam's lived in the UK all his life.
Yeah.
He shared 3 different stories that we, 2 of them which you can see on the channel.
Yeah.
And he's got more.
I know. Well, and Dee has more. His wife.
Oh, because she works at the store where they get a lot.
She works
of,
at the same grocery.
See,
where
we
they
gotta
sell-
get them. We gotta get some
I
ghost
know.
stories from them.
This is the
So
one
good.
thing about this is like the one.
My wife wouldn't let Eva May listen to it. She's like, I don't want you listening to ghost stories.
It's fair. Yeah, it's totally fair. Well, it's like the one redeeming. Nick and I are very we're very conservative. We're very Christian. We're very libertarian. We're very anti-technology, which is why we do our typewriter one-offs. We love the local non-globalization aspect of older tech. We both run flip phones.
Yep.
In fact, I think we probably both
Where's
got them
mine?
in our pockets.
Oh, mine's charging.
So,
Mine's
yeah, Nick
charging
is
up there.
charging his, but I mean, here's mine right here. So
Yep.
no joke, people. T9,
Yep.
T9 for life. I can't.
I have
gotta
this
use
little,
this
I have
so
this little, like behind my chair here. I'll scoot over. You can see
Oh,
I have
yeah.
a little secretary desk. I got a little
Yeah.
Corona 3 secretary desk where I put my typewriter on there.
Yeah, I mean,
One of my typewriters, and
You and
it's
I are both
magical.
kind of they really are,
Dude,
and,
it's
and we're
awesome.
both like 21st century Luddites in a lot of ways.
That's
But
okay.
the one area where we will make an exception to that is the connections that the awesome network that we've created with people like Adam,
Mhm.
people like Gary, John,
Yep.
and the amazing, and Steve,
Yes, Steve,
know,
yep.
Richard Polt, John Bernardo,
Yep.
the amazing interviews that we've had. So, I mean, everything,
It's been great.
everything's there's a silver lining to every cloud, and the silver lining to the technocracy crowd that, that we're always trying to fight against.
Yep.
We are by nature anti,
Yeah, and I gotta
digital
say, if
technology.
you're watching this currently, if you're watching this in 2021,
We're massive hypocrites too,
dude,
because it's on
no,
Spotify.
that's not what I'm saying. If you're watching this in 2021, we don't have the watch time or the subscriber count for our channel to be monetized, which means
Yeah.
there are no ads in any of our in any of our videos,
Yeah,
any of our interviews.
yeah.
Gary Wayne, Stephen,
And we're not
Pressel, Richard
sponsored
Poole,
by
John
anybody
Bernardo.
either.
Yeah, no sponsors,
Not
no
yet.
ads. We'll get there, but like
Yeah.
right now, it's awesome.
Yeah,
It's awesome.
it's just pure, baby. But I am really grateful for the internet, because I wouldn't have a friend like Adam.
Yeah,
if the internet
agreed.
didn't exist.
Agreed.
So yeah, Adam's killer. We love him.
Yeah.
The long and short of that, the past 10 minutes is basically like, Adam's really cool and we like him a lot. And
Yeah.
you should check him
We
out.
took 20 minutes for us to say that.
Yeah.
Adam and Dee are the bomb. They're the
Yeah.
best family. They are a boon to their country. They're
Yeah.
everything about England that you love.
Yeah.
But then when you actually meet them and talk to them, you're like, I wish this was my next door neighbor.
Yeah, I know.
You know?
I genuinely, at one point, Adam and I were talking about, like, he was sending me real estate ads, like for like cottages around the
Yes.
house, around the neighborhood, like
Dude.
in the area. And I was like, dude,
Or him move here. Come
Yeah.
here. Move
Yeah,
here.
move
I
here.
don't know. That'd be great.
Yeah.
It'd be great to be close to someone and be able to talk with them and,
yeah,
just, not every other week, but for them to actually be like neighbors where you can
I
like,
know.
spend time together and
if like the
our
government,
kids and their kids and it'd be great, man. It'd be awesome.
if the government could get the whole like flying and jab situation sorted out to where it's a tenable
Yeah.
scenario. Dude, I would love to go over there.
Yeah.
It's so worth
Me
it.
too.
I'd have
Me
to
too.
sell a few guns to make it happen,
Mm.
but worth it.
Totally.
Totally worth it.
You could do it.
So yeah,
And you'd have so many guns left over. That's the great thing.
yeah,
You
yeah.
wouldn't be hurting for guns.
We're dipping into a deep well, that's for
That's
sure.
right.
So, just for anyone who maybe has made it this far, but maybe it's just listening to this randomly, maybe you landed here because you're a John Anderson fan, and you should be by everything we've experienced so far. Nick and I do this live stream every Sunday at 4:30 p.m. With rare exceptions, when we're not able to, or there's a holiday. But I mean, truly, you could almost count on one hand how many Sundays over the past year
Yep.
we haven't been able to do this.
Yeah, when there wasn't a live stream or an upload of
Yeah.
a previous recording,
Yeah.
we do it every week. There's going to be something new.
Yeah, and do we have anybody lined up for next week?
Well, actually, I'm out of town next week. We have to.
You're out
we
of
have to
town next
double
week.
up.
That's what
Yeah.
it was. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But then the
okay.
week after is Stephen Pressfield.
You're right. So next week's episode, we're gonna I guess we'll double up, or we might skip. I don't really know. No, we can double up. That's cool. And then but the 17th at high noon Central Standard Time,
Yes, sir.
we're gonna get Stephen Pressfield back in here. So
Stephen Pressfield.
yeah, the man.
He's so cool. He's just you just kind of
so approachable.
Yeah, he's the type of guy where you kind of wish you went to his. I kind of wish he went to my church.
Yeah, no
because
kidding.
he's the type of guy
Yeah.
like I'd love to go to breakfast with you or be in a men's group with you and just kind of
Yeah.
sit at your feet and keep my mouth closed and let you just talk
Yeah,
because
just listen.
I want to learn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he seems so willing to share his experience and wisdom
yeah,
about writing.
yeah.
It's fantastic. And of course, you should first, before you do that, you should buy his books, read them, or
Yeah.
audiobooks and listen to them.
And most
Yeah.
people know Stephen Pressfield from The War of Art, which is his creative self-help book, which is just an absolute gem. It's a short little, 160 page, 140 page book.
Mhm.
Not much to it. But man, it is the boot to the backside that
Yeah.
you need in order to get off your ass and actually do something.
I bet a lot of people don't even realize that they already know Stephen Pressfield because he wrote The Legend of Bagger Vance.
Yeah, The Legend of Bagger Vance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool movie with Matt Damon and Will Smith.
Yep.
Cool book based off of the Bhagavad Gita. The enemy is my brother is kind of like, I think, a driving theme of that book that like I see I see my family and the enemy kind of, you
Mhm.
know, how can I kill these? It's an interesting book. And Pressfield's journey is very interesting. I always loved him. I wouldn't know about Stephen Pressfield if it weren't for Nick. Nick wouldn't know about Stephen Pressfield if it weren't for our eldest brother, BJ, who both of which read Gates of Fire,
Mhm.
which is the Battle of Thermopylae.
But BJ forgot he read it.
I know, yeah. We were like trying. I was
Beej.
like trying to flex on my older brother a while back, and I was like, "Beej, guess what, dude? We interviewed Stephen Pressfield. What, you know?" And Beej was like, and our oldest brother was like, "Who's that?" And I'm like, "What do you mean, who's that?"
He wrote Gates
dude?
of Fire.
The only reason we know about him is because of you ding dong, because you bought his book and read it in '99.
and
you know?
loved it and freaked out and passed it on to me. He's like, "You got to read this book. This is so good." I'm like, "All right, man." I read it. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, Jonathan, you got to read this book. It's so good."
And I did, and it changed my life. It severely. I mean,
It found the
launched-
people it needed to find.
It finds the people it needs to find. That's the
Yeah.
thing about being a writer. Your books will find its audience.
Yeah.
You know, your
Yeah.
books will find their audience. Your books will find the people they need to find. It's okay. Let it go into the world and just keep moving, you know? So that's you know, if you sit around waiting for a paycheck or waiting for a good review or waiting for an HBO deal, you're going to be very disappointed as a writer. That's not what being a writer is about, you know? So yeah, we adore Pressfield. He's been very generous, very kind, very gracious
It's been awesome.
to us, and man, we're really looking forward to, you know, he's a cool guy.
Yeah.
He's a good friend. We're looking forward to talking to him again.
Man,
And,
this is the great. I mean, that's what I love about this life, and I hope everyone who sees this is feeling the same thing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like Stephen Pressfield is an amazing dude, and Gary Wayne is an amazing
Yeah,
dude.
Gary
John
Wayne.
Anderson and John Bernardo
yeah,
and Richard Polt. These
Yeah.
are amazing people.
Yeah,
And it's such, I mean, it's like humbling, and it's a privilege to be able to talk with them.
It really
for
is
them to
an
agree
honor.
to do this.
Yeah.
So you guys can also listen to them too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's awesome getting to meet them. And, you know, if you catch us while we do this live, and if you we will field your questions to these
Yeah.
amazing,
Yeah.
interesting people. Please, you know, watch us live, send us questions in the chat, and we'll
it's a
forward
rare
them
opportunity.
guest.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever not asked a question that was posed to us in the chat.
I don't think I missed them. Sometimes I drink a little too much bullet,
Right.
and I might
Yeah.
miss one. I don't think I have though.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a great way for you to connect with those people you've heard about or super
Yeah.
interesting, especially, you know, like Gary Wayne in next month on the 14th. He's coming
Yeah.
back for round 2. Gary Wayne round 2.
Gary Wayne,
And man,
round
I'll
2,
tell you
baby.
what, when he came on the first time,
Yeah.
The topics that he went over and covered, I got that following week, just got so many questions from people who were so interested in maybe a specific thing he was talking about. And
Yeah.
if you guys, you know, watch us when we do it live, and you can actually field your questions to, we will direct your questions to him. And because, dude, that guy can talk, man.
Dude,
He can go deep.
Gary Wayne is a mentat from Dune. You know, he is like a human computer. That
Mhm.
Gary Wayne is so cool and fascinating to talk to, and he reminds me constantly. Every time I listen to him, he reminds me of how dumb I am. And like,
Well,
because
been
he's so
doing 30
smart.
years of research.
Yeah, 30 years of
I
research.
keep on. I don't think he has his doctorate, but he deserves an honorary one.
He
But I
does
keep on to
deserve
call
an
him
honorary
Dr.
doctorate.
Gary Wayne. It sounds
Yeah.
good, right? It's got a,
Yeah, it
and
does
in
have a
my
nice ring
opinion,
to it.
he has a doctorate level expertise in the subject matter.
He really does. I don't know anybody who's more thorough in their knowledge
Mm.
of these biblical concepts and these subjects than
Yep.
Gary Wayne.
Yep.
You know, he's the Encyclopedia Britannica of this information that
Yeah, for
everybody
sure.
else goes to.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he's the resource.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Sort of like how Pressfield is the resource, you know, he's the guy people go to when you want, they're the Yodas of their world,
Mhm.
you know, of their fields. They are the Yodas.
Mhm.
They're, if you need an X-Wing lifted out of the swamp, baby, you
Mhm.
know, they're the ones to go to.
Yeah.
So,
You know, the
and
cool thing
it's
about
so cool to
Pressfield-
be able to talk to them.
Like Pressfield has the kind of the spirit of Hemingway
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
that, as far as like his masculine way of writing
Yeah.
and his commitment
Yeah.
to being a writer no matter what.
Yeah.
But then it's like where that meets, I'm a yeoman, I'm a grinder,
Right. I'm a
I'm a
grinder.
professional writer.
I will serve
This
on
is
the
my
wheel
career.
of pain. Yeah.
He brings both of those two together, and that's
Yeah.
why I think he's so popular. It's because
Yeah.
he's a writer's writer. Most people who write, they really want to commit to it, and they can learn about the Hemingways and the great authors of the world. But
But with
how
the
do you apply that?
self-awareness of-
Yeah, how do you apply that now?
Yeah.
What are the best practices, quote unquote?
Yeah.
And man, Pressfield will lay it out for you.
He really will. Well, his degree in psychology shines through,
Mm.
Especially from a Jungian aspect. It's really cool reading Gates of Fire because you really see the Jungian psychology play out there.
Mhm.
But also he was a Marine. I
love that guy.
think during the time of Vietnam, if I remember correctly. So you really get the best of both worlds with a third element of the artist in there as well. And I mean, dude, we've we've had luminaries trespass our threshold.
Yeah,
It
for
is
real.
awesome.
For real. I feel like a cockroach when they shine their light on me. I want to hide under a table. I'm like, I don't deserve to be in this light.
We're not worthy.
The first time
We're not
Steven,
worthy.
before we went live with Steven Pressfield,
Were you? Did
We-
you have some pee in your titty?
We
Because
did-
I'm like the Pressfield super fan, but
We
Nick
did-
was over here sweating bullets.
we
It was
did it.
really
We did
funny.
like a FaceTime. Like we were chatting with him.
Yeah.
We were talking with him before we went live.
Yeah,
This camera was turned on. We were talking to him.
like this
And
existential
the whole
moment where
time
you're
I
like,
was,
"I'm not gonna see
the
you
whole
right
time there was this negative talk, right? In the back of my
Yeah.
head going, why are you talking to me? What am I doing here?
now." Yeah,
This is amazing.
yeah,
But I don't think I should be here. It
Uh-huh.
should be someone else.
yeah,
But he said yes.
yeah.
You
Of
know?
course. Yeah.
It was awesome.
Well, and even
Good
more
dude.
so, he's
Why are you being so nice to me? Why are you such a normal person?
right? Why can I talk to you like I can talk to like my uncle?
Nah,
Why
he's
is this?
exactly.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
a great dude. He's a great dude.
What's
You know who
going
I'd
on?
really like to get on here too?
Who?
Robert Greene. You know who that
Robert
is?
Greene, no, who's that?
Robert Greene wrote, and I emailed him. I don't know if we'll ever hear from him, but how cool would it be? Robert Greene, the 33 Strategies of War.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
The 40 Laws of Power.
Oh, that guy. Oh,
Yeah.
dude, you want to talk about somebody
The 50th
who like
Law, the
would
Laws
be a
of
great
Seduction.
dovetail with Pressfield.
Man,
Yeah,
he's awesome. I mean, you want to
I
learn.
bet they know each other.
I mean, it's like Robert Greene looks at, he takes history
Yeah,
and extracts these principles, these best practices
Philosophical-
for understanding the world and getting your way.
mm-hmm.
It's like that's like Machiavelli. Not
Well,
really.
it's understanding human psychology.
Yeah, in
based off
history.
of,
In
the
history.
repetition of history.
and it's applicable.
Yeah.
He's awesome. I've read
Yeah.
all of his books, all of them.
Yeah,
And man, I'd love to have him on.
that'd be cool.
That'd be so great. Robert
Yeah,
Greene
that
would be great.
yeah,
too.
that would be a neat one.
I've
Yeah.
I've actually emailed a lot of these authors up here on my shelf,
Yeah,
and
Yeah,
we'll
why
see.
not?
We'll strike gold.
I mean, the funny thing
And
is,
we already have struck gold.
yeah, dude.
Gary
we have
Wayne,
struck
Stephen
gold.
Pressfield, John Bernardo, Richard
Yeah,
Polt.
Richard Polt.
Dude, Richard Polt was awesome. That guy
Yeah.
is.
He was a lot of fun to talk to.
He is, and he has his doctorate in. Is it psychology? Doctor of psychology.
Possibly, I
I
forgot.
can't remember.
Yeah.
But he's
Sorry.
like,
Sorry,
yeah.
Dr.
Please forgive
Polt.
us,
Yeah.
Dr. Polt. But he is scary smart.
Yeah,
But he loves typewriters,
yeah,
and I'm like, well, then let's talk about that.
yeah.
I'm
let's
dumb
talk
when
about
it comes to that
typewriters,
other
baby.
stuff, but typewriters,
Yeah.
man, talk to me.
Yeah.
And it was so cool.
Talk
So-
typey to me.
His room was just like wall to wall.
No, dude, that live stream is so awesome because he took us on a tour. Like he just picked up his like camera or whatever. I don't know what he was
typewriter,
using.
the Remington that
And
his
then he
dad
showed
passed
us
on
like,
to him.
yeah, he showed us all the typewriters in his writing
That
room.
was awesome.
Real quick, that is super neat. Yeah, he was
Yeah.
really generous too.
Yeah.
And Natasha, are we gonna get Natasha?
Yeah,
on?
Natasha Rawls, November
Yeah.
7th.
November 7th.
Yep.
Awesome.
She loves
That's gonna be
typewriters.
cool.
She's an author. And you
Yeah.
know what? I don't know if she's still watching or not, but I might see if she would write a typewriter one off.
Oh, she should totally. Yeah, Natasha, if you're watching this or if you're listening to it later, dude, get a typewriter one off for us.
Yeah, write a
and
one page
read it.
something on a
Yeah.
typewriter.
Join us on the typewriter one off.
That'd be a
'cause-
first. You would be the first guest apart from Adam.
Apart from Adam.
Because
Adam
Adam
has
Burrow
contributed.
has done that.
But Adam did not type his on a typewriter.
True. Oh, that's
So-
true. You'd be
No,
the first guest
Adam-
to have an actual typewriter.
Yeah,
one-off.
Adam is a very good and very prolific writer. He had like 30 something one-offs banked.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
and
awesome.
man, and he's good.
Yeah.
He's really,
really good
good.
stories.
You know, he and his wife do D&D stuff, and that's a great way to flex your creative muscle. And Adam is very good at it. But Natasha, you would be the first to do it from a typewriter.
And you know you can do it.
yeah.
You got the tools, you got the talent. Just got to take the time.
she's
I love
probably like,
alliteration.
yeah, whatever. I got like 80 of them right here.
Like
Like,
probably does.
you know, what do you
He
want?
probably
What
does.
category do you want? You know,
It's great.
chunks.
But I'll ask her if she wants to. If she doesn't, and if she's, you know, if that's too much
Oh,
pressure,
yeah.
she doesn't have to do it,
Yeah,
obviously.
sure.
But it'd be really cool if she could,
Yeah.
you know, write something on one of her typewriters. Have you seen some of her type? She has this Remington.
Yes.
She has this Remington that is gorgeous. It looks like a freaking
Well, and I think
Mercedes from the 30s. I mean,
she
it's
does
just
beautiful
awesome.
work. The other thing, she's kind of like, I mean, honestly, she's kind of like all the people that we interview in that, like, she's kind of an autodidact.
Mm.
I mean, as far as I know, because she kind of is into like restoring typewriter restoration, you know?
Yep.
I mean, there's no school that you go to for that.
Yeah.
You know, you just, it kind of like Kirk from National Typewriter. Like, you just kind of learn how to do it.
Yep.
You know, and that's really impressive. We've had a few people like that who are autodidacts, who just, you know, they didn't go to school for it. They just kind of learned how to do it on their own, and they made it happen. And I mean, you can do it.
Yeah.
You know,
You know, it's cool.
Totally
I was
do it.
watching her Instagram feed.
Unless you suck at it, then you shouldn't do it.
Please don't. Well, you can do it here.
Yeah, you
But-
can do it here because we suck at it too. So it's fine.
But I was watching her Instagram feed, and she had this post of her, I think it was her kid, her daughter, playing on one of her typewriters.
Oh, cute.
And I was like, I get it. I said, I want this person.
Shot through the heart,
I want
baby.
Natasha I want to talk to Natasha. This is so
Yeah,
cool.
that
I love
is
what she's doing.
awesome.
I love it. Because you
Yeah.
remember talking with Richard Polt, I asked him about typewriters and kids. What is that kid-like fascination
Oh,
with,
yeah,
with the
didn't-
machine?
Wasn't he the one who talked about how, like, you know, you can set them up and the kids will just come in and just start typing on them? And
Yeah, and there's some places actually set up in his town where they have this time where kids come to the shop
yeah,
and they just have kids just play on typewriters.
that's so cool.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that's
It's amazing.
awesome. Yeah,
Cool.
there's something to that, baby.
I know it. I know it.
So-
Well, man, you got anything else?
Nope, I'm good. I guess we gotta bank another one, and then yeah, we got some stuff to do in the back.
I'm gonna
end.
pee first.
So, oh yeah, sure. That's
We're
fine.
we're like 2 hours and 35 minutes, which I
Cool.
guess is standard, right?
At this point, it's standard. It used to be, yeah, it used to be like half an hour,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And now we have mushroomed out. So
It's more fun now.
all right, cool. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us.
Yes.
Thank you for watching the John Anderson book or interview. The Price of Salvation is the name of his book.
Yep.
And you definitely will want to check it out on Amazon or at Dorrance Books or at his website, Anderson. What was it again? AndersonBookworks.org.
AndersonBookworks.org. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Dorrance. Is it DorranceBooks.com? I think.
Yeah, it's either that or
DorranceBookshop.com.
DorranceBookshop.com.
Yep.
Yeah. The oldest bookshop in the country. Very cool.
Man.
So, yeah, we're super grateful to John Anderson. We're looking forward to having him back. And yeah, tune in next week. I think we'll probably bank an episode here. And then the 17th, we'll have Stephen Pressfield at high noon.
High noon on the
High
17th.
noon.
Stephen Pressfield, October 17th,
Yeah,
2021.
so be sure to tune
Gonna
in
be
live
awesome.
for that if you have the time for it, because that's going to be a lot of fun. But,
Yeah.
in the meantime, Adam, Natasha, thank you for commenting. John, thank you for joining us. And I'm Jonathan,
I'm Nick.
and we are the Gosslings, and you guys have a great week.